All right, it's going. Cool. So, as we were saying, Cal is sitting there looking cool in his black attire.
It's actually
Mr. Cool Man. Sorry, not Cal.
it's sort of a lightning rod for controversy, just like the dress that people perceived as either white and gold or blue and black, depending.
Yeah, that's how your dress is.
My vest,
Or the,
sir.
your vest.
Vest.
Your vest.
That's
Your
right.
vest. Your puffy vest. Because it's not a jacket, but it's keeping you warm.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in full yuppie mode right now,
Mm-hmm.
as I have the right to be. I am relatively young, relatively urban, and on my better days, relatively professional. So, it's okay. It works.
Luke's here. What?
What the?
No way.
Oh man,
Oh, he
you
froze.
really messed up, Jason. Because now a coke fueled anachronism from the 70s has joined the chat.
Do you know your real name's Lucifer? I might have
I
been.
wish I could do coke.
His
I
real
feel
name
like
is
doing coke would be so
Luciano.
much fun.
We all wish we
Is
could
Luke
do
what?
coke.
When he goes to Italy, it's going to be Luciano. I like my upper lip is
Luciano.
naked without a mustache in this chat.
It is.
Yeah. I'm surprised that mustache has withstood the straight razors.
Dude, I haven't gotten one yet, but I just ordered one from a French Canadian man because my other guy isn't ready yet, so I'll probably end up with two.
Whoa.
The addiction's real.
I just ordered one off Amazon because I'm cheap, but I am getting one. I ordered it today, so
Dude,
part of the
listen to the second to last Rogan where he talks to the rancher from Texas and learn about corporatism and what it does to the world, my friend.
Oh, so then I'll stop with Amazon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about? Five Goodness?
Sure. We can talk about whatever. We were talking about Cal's attire. I brought this hat in that I said everyone agrees is racist, but no one can agree on what race it's prejudice against. So I think that makes it not
Against
racist.
whom is racist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I share I share the
cool,
sentiment of haters.
You what?
It's definitely racist.
I think it's racist.
I just don't know against whom. So that's
It's
fine.
racist against the races that suck. Fill in the blank.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Do you guys want me to
Joseph, you
mute
jumped in
myself?
there.
Do you want me to mute myself when I vacuum?
Sure. Are you?
I think we
Sure.
need the vacuum cleaner to cover over the inanity that is going to ensue between Jason and myself. Speaking of razors, I was looking for whatever blades are said to go well with the Parker A1R, and I can't find them yet. Except that Parker makes its own blades, but generally speaking, the blades that come with the razor kind of stink. Generally, you want to get blades from some other manufacturer.
My favorite blades have Wesley Snipes and Steven Dorff in them.
The best blades.
Those are.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, it's that. Is that one of the shirts your wife likes that you wear for work?
Yes. This is one of the shirts that I used to have as a nice shirt. I mean, I'm sure I got it like consignment or something, but it's linen. I like natural fiber shirts.
It looks nice.
Jason.
I like it. Like I said, you could always use one more button undone.
I have a shirt underneath it though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that doesn't help.
My Superman shirt.
No, it's not what we're looking for.
No, it wasn't what we were hoping for.
I know. So, Cal, are you wearing your khakis?
My what?
Your khaki pants.
Khaki always.
All right. Good job.
You have no other pants.
You can't make stop.
No.
You don't have jeans? You just have khakis?
I don't wear jeans. Jeans are not comfortable to me.
But khakis are? You should be like my teenage my teenager who's just like they only wear sweatpants. I think
Mhm.
it's like all they wear.
Well, that
Yeah,
is
that's
very
too.
Generation Z. I don't know what millennials are supposed to wear. Maybe jeans is a Gen X thing. I honestly am at a loss to say what millennials are supposed to wear. But like I
This
mean,
hat
one can really
and a
make an
vest.
argument that I'm autistic or something. Like in college, I wore like Hawaiian shirts and like these sun hats, and I would like chain smoke and drink monsters and stuff like. And I was like,
Dude, now we're
totally,
talking.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
just totally
Hawaiian
comfortable with
shirts are probably
making
some of the
other
most
people
comfortable
uncomfortable.
shirts.
I used to chew chewing tobacco, and I would drink monsters.
That's right.
So
Oh, a
that's when I
fake
was a real
Mexican
winner.
Super Mario and Scandinavian walk into a stream yard.
Oh, I'm that I could look Scandinavian with this getup, right? Or like German or something. Yeah.
Hop in here. What is he doing? He's commenting.
Nicely for breakfast.
Who's commenting?
It was Christian. He's going by, I can't even say that word. It's something about agapologia.
Agapologia is what I would have thought.
Agapologia. All I know is agape's in it. But
I can't hear any of the word, or I can't read any of the words because I'm only in StreamYard because I'm on my phone. So I just have to guess.
He's not a prime member. He's like a bronze, some lower tier member. It's not a fully established member.
I'm the kind of member that is using a white eraser to just scrub down a bunch of cupboards.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of member I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing? Is that your house, or is that one of your houses that you work on?
This is one of the places I work on. So this is what happens when someone rents a place who is a dirty person. A dirty person. And
no shame and no judgment, but they are an extremely slovenly, disgusting
piece of
human garbage. That's what I was going to say.
Cal tells me all the time. I think Cal really pushes on me about the non-judgment stuff because he thinks I'm really judgy, and I think he's right.
I don't even know. I talk about non-judgment because that's the bus I ride to work. Or trying to. I mean, I feel like Jason keeps talking about how forgiveness is the point where once he reaches it, it's like all the divine mysteries are disclosed almost. I mean, it sounds a little extreme when you put it that way, but for me, it's when you try to. It's instead of judging, you try to understand. That the kind of the depths are open and the possibilities of oneness open up. So I mean, it's as much for me as it is for you, because look, the thing is if I'm getting on you for judging too much, then what am I doing in the end but judging you for judging?
Whoa, boxed.
No, I mean, for me, there's also a point where you have to understand that judging is just what you're gonna do, because you can't realistically expect yourself to never judge. So there's always that point in the analysis, I guess, where you would say that the normative gives way to the positive. Questions of what should be just turn into questions of what is going to happen. And so there's no escape from that. Like you said, that judging is this thing that we shouldn't do and yet have to do all the time. Any kind of perception or experience is a judgment. It's taking the raw stuff of experience, really God ultimately, as a particular logical identity, let's say, and then kind of rolling with it. But there are always undisclosed depths to any surface, right? So, and that's where the the really interesting stuff happens is in the depths. But for that, you need the judgment impedes. You need the non-judgment.
The non-judgment is kind of like the bedroom and the bed in MTV Cribs. It's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, actually, that's a much more highbrow way to state it.
Oh man,
I think actually David Bentley Hart would be interested to pursue that simile more deeply.
listen, David Bentley Hart only impresses people smart enough to understand 40% of what he's saying.
Right. Yeah, no, David Bentley Hart is, I mean, only God can judge him, right?
I think we should all just get that lower back. We should all just get that lower back tattoo, or even here, or like no regrets,
no
like
regrets,
misspelled or something.
I'd get it on like a tramp stamp. I'd get it on my lower back.
Yeah,
I do have one of those at home. That's like a stick-on one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a paste-on, no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
He should join in. We can talk about forgiveness. Hop on here.
You know what PBK has regrets about? Not clipping the stuff I tell him to clip. for Vander clips.
True stuff. Like when PBK, finds himself at the judgment seat of God. These are the sins of omission that will truly haunt him.
Yes, I want to know PBK.
Usually, we took over Jacob's channel, so
put in the comments, PBK, if we are cooler than Ark. Sorry, Jason, go back to your slurs.
No, I was just saying this fake Mexican took over Jacob's channel. So, is it Mexican though? I don't think it's Mexican. That's what makes it not racist, because no one can tell.
We weren't saying it, but now you outed yourself.
No, that's what Christian said. I thought a different one, but I'm not going to say. He said yes. So I guess that means we are cooler. So, but anyone can hop on here if you want. I guess we can. Actually, I don't know that I posted the thing in here.
So to make it more serious, and besides all the jokes, even though we're very good at jokes, I do think that there is. I mean, I don't know how you said it. Forgiveness. Like I was saying this to my wife the other day. I think if you were at the place where you truly, I don't understand how, if you're at the place where you truly forgave everyone, including yourself, like absolutely, Christ-like, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Like that's maybe the most condensed version there is. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Is God as God man.
Yeah.
And if you were to do that with everything, you'd be in utter bliss. Mm-hmm. If you judged no one, I don't understand how that wouldn't be bliss.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like Kyle was saying, any judgment is almost like a perception. So you're weirdly holding all these tensions together. You're like holding all these judgments, all these identities, one hand, and then allowing them all to be in another hand, and just it becomes this weird. I don't know how to describe it. Like I was telling Cal earlier, I get weird glimpses of it where it feels just like right on the tips of my fingers. It's like it's right there, and it just feels like shalom or something. I mean, I don't know the right way to say it. Where I almost don't even want to talk about it. You just kind of want to sit there and just be in that bliss.
It's the sort of the mystical oneness of all things, and really, all things are ultimately one. That oneness of all things and people and identities, that all identities are ultimately one is just what it means to say that God exists. So the question just becomes, how do you see that unity / seek it, i.e. try to realize it, try to bring it about. And I think Jesus said you have to lay down your life for your friends. You have to sort of undertake the greatest sacrifice of which you are capable.
Mhm.
You have to go down the way of love, but what that turns out to be is not something necessarily very warm or fuzzy or easy. It actually turns out to be the sort of steepest conceivable sacrifice. But somehow it's in that death to self, like it can be forgiveness. It can be, non-judgment and forgiveness. It's the same thing. And because you're holding back the judgment, and that has a cost, because it's the last thing you want to do. It's negating some self for which you mistook yourself. But if you can get over that, then you discover your identity is much deeper and much more godlike, much more divine. It's broad, because the identity of God is so infinite, so non-dual, that it is in everything. And I also don't think, for that reason, that's why I was at great pains on my podcast to say that God proper, like the limit of godhood, God in his most ultimate and transcendent form, he does not judge. We judge ourselves. Because for God to see something, something amiss or out of true in any particular circumstances, which he sees fully, or any person or identity, it's like almost a failure of God to see himself. It's like if he were to not see himself, if he could fail to see himself, it would in some way translate to a failure of reality to continue existing. But it does keep existing. But it's like it would be a failure of God to be God on some level. I don't know. I don't know if this is necessarily very obvious. I kind of went into.
Sorry, go ahead.
I kind of went into deep stuff on the newer podcast that not very many people have been listening to, but I've been kind of thinking about these things for like the last 5 or 6 months. And so they're pretty familiar to me and kind of deeply ingrained in the way that I think about things now. And maybe I have to try to remember, like, to back up and take into account where other people are. But, there was kind of the big realization that I thought I had early on in the second podcast, was the way that if all facts or occurrences and eventualities owe their existence to God, there's nothing that transpires that doesn't ultimately find its origin in God. Like, for example, if someone does some evil thing, some sinful thing, we tend to get God off the hook by pointing out that the person has free will. But to observe that the person has free will is just to observe that they have the capacity to act in some way or some other way, but it doesn't answer the question of why they act in one way rather than another way. To actually figure out why did they do this particular thing that they ended up doing rather than the alternative, you need to invoke God. You need to invoke the first cause. In other words, God is truly ultimately responsible for everything that occurs. And given that, would it make sense for him to judge people? And you can point to scripture where God is the potter and we're the clay, and so he does whatever he pleases. But that was why I had this whole meditation previously on, like, the left and right hand of God, his permissive and positive wills, and how his permissive will is ultimately best seen as he's just letting Satan act. Satan kills, steals, and destroys. He destroys existing things, but when it comes to the positive will, that's God's right hand, and only God can create. For creation, you need God, and for the permissive will, you only need God to step back, so to speak. But in the end, God, being omniscient and omnipotent, he's responsible fully for everything that happens, because he could have always created a different world. Everything that we call his permissive will now is seen ultimately to be the positive will, but it's like we'll see it for what he ultimately intended it to be, a la, what you meant for evil, he meant for good. So anyway, I came to the conclusion that it really just doesn't make sense for God to sort of set up his toy soldiers in a certain way, become irate with them, and then knock them down. That's kind of a that's obviously a little bit of a straw man there, but I came to the conclusion that it makes much more sense for judgment to be something that we do to ourselves, and seen in that light, it's actually the permissive will of God, something God allows us to do rather than something which he himself positively does. God's final judgment is rather a non-judgment, which, you know, we need our own negative self-judgment to finally break out of our narrow self-concept into the kind of the freer air and the pure light of God's non-judgment, which is also his unconditional love and acceptance, and his seeing us as in his own image. So to not be judged is to have an identity which is not limited to any one like trivial aspect or feature. You know, when you're judged or damned, it's like you're condemned as just a murderer or just a adulterer, or just a this, just a that. But when you're not judged, your identity is free to be properly unlimited, like the identity of God. So that is why I say that God doesn't judge. Obviously, some people may still want me to go more into that. I mean, there's wrinkles here because, in a sense, you know, let's say God, the limit of godhood, he doesn't judge, but our own concept of God judges us. There's a sort of a wrinkle here where it's like anything that you experience is going to be, you know, to experience something is in some way to place a limit on it. So there's almost like no form of God that you can experience that doesn't amount to a concept of God, at least not in retrospect. I've had increasingly the sense that the present moment is, in a weird way, some kind of unmediated experience of the infinite. And it's only in retrospect, trying to put predicates and characterize it, that you run into, you know, finitude. Like the present moment as such, you can't measure it, you can't durate it, you can only measure it, or you can only measure it as what it isn't, namely the past. But the present, when you try to train your awareness on it, it's infinitely elusive, because it is like nothingness / everythingness, because you will always be able to find that equivalence between nothingness and everythingness. Every determination is a negation and vice versa. Yeah, there's wrinkles because any sort of experience of God that you have is, you know, it's going to bear description as limited. It's in some sense as if you only experience your concept of God. You know, that gets into paradoxes Jason and I have talked about, where it's like, on some level you can say everyone and everything is God. God, his identity is infinite. He doesn't logically exclude other identities. That's part of what it means to be infinite, to not have an opposite. And yet on another level, it's like no one and nothing is God that we can see, because he's too transcendent, too infinite for them. And so in that sense, it's as if he doesn't exist, because he's not experienceable in principle. And so it's like either everyone and everything is God, or no one and nothing is God. And you can even replace the conjunction or with and. Everyone and everything is God, and God is still transcendent or beyond everyone and everything. So it's intrinsically kind of a dynamic, like when Maximus the Confessor said that God is in all things, he is all things, and he's beyond all things. It's like intrinsically kind of this moving target. But I won't say stable midpoint. It's an intrinsically unstable place, but like the place that we kind of end up is saying that people and things are in the image of God, and that means that they have really just kind of on ramp to theosis, where like the more that you know them agapically, let's say, the more that they kind of very swiftly seem to become God. I would say, yeah, it's well. Anyway, I'm getting someone's talk. I'm getting confused. I have like some kind of narcolepsy type thing where later in the day I'm very slow and sleepy.
It was Nahama. She threw you off because she called you cool. Oh no, she called you smart, not cool.
Why
She
do you
called
call me cool? No one is cool, but
one.
but
God.
yeah,
I have a
don't know how to
question.
put that.
I have a question. I think a serious question about something that I've never actually questioned with somebody who, or with people who are more biblicist than I am. Where do we get the concept of God as unconditional love? Where does that come from?
Comes from the heart more than it comes from the Bible. People's common sense about God, I would say.
Well, I don't think. I mean, there's a lot of people who wouldn't say that. I think who are theists, or believers in God of some stripe.
But they have to
I would,
outsmart themselves into having that opinion on some level.
true, but
Pre-politically.
where I would point is, I forget which number it is, but that psalm where it's just like, God's steadfast love endures forever, where it just repeats that over and over and over and over. You know,
Yeah,
like
but
that's
then
just
there's
like
other parts where it's like, like in some of those psalms where it's like, destroy those that would,
totally
persecute me, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and so like, yeah, I mean, who is he loving there? The ones that are just being destroyed. I'm not. This is a serious question because I think fundamentally I believe that God is unconditional love. However, it lets me off the hook on a lot of shit.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think it. I don't know. I'm kind of in the. I mean, I love when you hop on here, Chad, because I really feel like I love your perspective on a lot of things. And where you take the conversation, I would. I've often feel the same way, and I don't know that that's off the hook for stuff. It's kind of weird. Let's see. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, you have the epistles of John that just about say God is love, but I think if I'm thinking of like the Old Testament, it just seems like it kind of has to result in that, because I feel like if you enter into a covenant with God, you're entering into something that's based on vows, and then there's always this implication that you're gonna break that vow, and so then what do you need is something like forgiveness. You need the covenant to be unconditional in a way. You need him to love you when you fail. And so I think that's always like this weird. To me, it just seems like that's a process of creation. That's always this in and out. That's why it's in Ezekiel 16 that like really, I personally shifted my theology on forgiveness. It's where it shows he picks up Israel as like a, just a babe, and then she grows into a beautiful woman, then he marries her, and then she becomes a harlot, and then at the end he says, "Yet I will return to you and restore you as at the first." So the covenant you find is something deeper than just this weird conditional. You do this and I'll love you. Like it's because after that's broken, it's like, wait, God's still there? What the heck? Like, how am I not? Yeah.
100%.
Well, I think unconditional love is actually ineffable. It's like it's not ineffable, maybe more so inconceivable. Really.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I think in that way, maybe like, because if we believe God is ineffable, and basically, I don't know, like rationally inconceivable, then okay, in that sense, I'm all on board, because like he seems to go where he wants or whatever. But which brings me to like a kind of aside to all of this, which I've been there's a lot of things going on right now that are with me that are like kind of culminating. I'm actually wrestling with some very serious questions about where do I belong in various places. Not my church, but Like I just listened to Paul Kingsnorth talking Madison, and I'm like, Jesus, like I'm like ready to like throw my phone in the garbage, and like, and I don't want to, which makes me like almost have to. And so there's that. And I was thinking other day about, you know how we kind of equate children as having um, uh, robust imagination, and the idea of imagination is something that's almost has been reduced down to the concept of imagination. And that, I know that sounds crazy, but I was thinking of it. It's like imagination is like, what if that's actually the basis of of a person? Like it's almost like take the word imagination and think and put spirit there instead, maybe. And then like the material world that we live in is in many ways camouflage what real imagination is. uh, I don't know. It's maybe I'm getting to enchantment or something, and so I'm thinking about all of this, and and so I'm kind of going through a mini existential crisis, and a crisis of um, where to serve, because that's very important to me, and I don't want to give you guys up because I made many good friends and very meaningful relationships. However, uh, I'm susceptible to being putting myself in a cell that I don't want to be in. And I get the same sense that if I'm able to walk away from it, as terrifying as it is, it would be very fruitful, even though, like, yeah, I hate the idea. Anyways, so, like, I'll listen for a little while now. Sorry if I've derailed everything.
What you said about the imagination is something that I've thought a bit about. It's sort of like you might say, like the nothingness of consciousness. Well, I thought it was interesting that you said that. It seems like we have an unimaginative conception of the imagination. And maybe what you're getting at is like sort of the real, the true imagination is something, what, unlimited. And it's so unlimited that it sort of, it's what imagination in the older sense of that word is like just the capacity to form images. And so, imagination proper, it's like something you can't even really conceive of, and it's so unlimited that it's what allows you to have every conceivable experience, or hold any conceivable image in your mind, so to speak. And yeah, what that is it's again, it's kind of like the nothingness of consciousness. Like I used to have trouble understanding how God could be simple in the theological sense of not having parts, but I also saw how there was something kind of dynamic and slippery about an utterly simple God, where it wasn't even really conceivable, except in the way that nothingness is conceivable, or maybe I should say it's not. You can't refer to it except in the way that you can refer to the unlimited, which is like simultaneously to refer to it and not refer to it, or refer to it as the unreferenceable or whatever. But then I kind of realized that if the question of whether God can be both nothingness and some kind of person with whom I'm in relationship is kind of moot, because I'm similarly fluid and essenceless in the same way as God. And so the question, I might as well be asking whether I'm a person. But in some way, it's just, I think that's just what it means to be a person, is to defy description and to have a sort of essenceless essence.
Well, this is.
Well,
I kept thinking
right,
this
so,
with
like-
with every. The only thing I want to say, and then I'll go back to cleaning, is we talk about God in this very abstract way, like who can conceive of him? Jesus. There you go. Like and in that sense, you're right. It's like a person. It doesn't mean that it's like encapsulable and fully comprehensible because a person isn't. But God, you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I'm thoroughly and unabashedly Christian.
What is it?
So-
What does it mean to be
Well-
the image of something invisible? That's super weird, right?
Well,
Or like,
Kinda.
this, I think this might be kind of related to what Luke said. Get back to cleaning. Get out of here. This might be kind of related to what I was.
Crap out of here, please. I was completely clearing the whole time. I was just like super mad. Just wanted to punch in the face.
It was
Exactly.
too close
Yeah.
to the camera.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
the only way I've been able to conceive of God is when all of the questions I had about him were wiped away, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's been literally the only way I've been able to really have a real communion with him. And again, that was like completely out of my hands. Like, so I wasn't looking for that. It was like the last thing I would have wanted because I wanted the opposite. And it was like without my permission, it's like, well, you're looking for something, so here it is. And then like every question I had about conceivability was completely swiped off the table.
Yeah.
So, like in a very dramatic way for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I have no desire to even look for the pieces, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Can you say more about that? I'm not sure I'm tracking exactly.
And my question, if you can remember both questions, is: do you find that does it make it easier for you to not judge people?
Well, to answer your question, Cal, it's always a very, very tough challenge. But he already primed me for it before he came to me. So, like, because like for me, although I'm kind of constantly in a state of judgment, like I can walk into a room of people I love, and my mind is already flagging shit immediately. Bang, 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 and like, so it's like I don't know if that's ever gonna go away.
I guess what I'm asking is that experience of like, well, maybe you weren't describing it as a state of mind that you're sometimes in and sometimes not, like having all your questions about God sort of swept away. Maybe I sort of misheard and you were saying this was an event that happened, and like after this event, things are just permanently different.
They are.
Okay, but within the permanent difference following that event, you still, you're still just as likely to judge people.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry, Jason. What was your question then?
He wants to know how it happened.
Just more about the experience. I didn't know what you were exactly referring to. You said you came to this point where you had no more questions, or
yeah, I had like this. I had always been or not always, but yeah, maybe always sought God, but I had sought God in a particular way, which was my conception of God, or what I understood about God, was seek Him, and that was God. So just keep seeking God, and that's God. And and so I didn't have. I was kind of terrified to have an identity or a person attached to that. And even more than that, the name Jesus or Christ or like Savior made me kind of bristle with antagonism, and because I thought it was like not humble, and there's a lot of stuff, and I was like, I thought it was like a grift, and like I wanted to understand how the hell did the Christians even make sense of this? Like what does this even mean? Like, born of a virgin and then died and then rose again. Like, so like all of the kind of rational, reasonable questions for, like God in the world. And they completely blocked me. And so when I had this conversion experience, I was listening to like this book that had scripture in it. It was the story of the Legion story. I'm listening to that, and by the time the Jesus gets on the boat and leaves, I was like, every question I had was gone. Um, so that's what I mean, and so like the plausibility or truth or forensic explanations have just never reappeared.
Like more, I guess you would say natural explanations. The desire for those questions to be answered just kind of were swept away.
Yeah, they're
In
gone.
a
It's as if he said, don't, like, this is completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
I
do think it's
here I am.
Yeah, I feel like it's. I go through that where I don't necessarily know that it's completely irrelevant, but I do definitely think it's secondary. Like there's a weird way when I think you grasp the actually I hate using that word now, but the symbolism of it, when you start to grab that, it's like the natural occurrence of it just seems to be like, well, obviously that could happen, and it probably did happen. But I mean, I wouldn't say like I necessarily understand the symbolism or the implications of even saying about virgin birth, but it's like there's something so profound about that in the abstract, in the idea, in the imagination, that I think for it to occur in the natural, you just be like, yeah, well, no big deal. It's like, I don't know.
Well,
and yeah, it does. It seems like
here's a strange thing. Like, so for me, like as simultaneously the questions were wiped off the table and answered with just a solid knowing. Like it's like it's something I couldn't ever even begin to understand or articulate. Like, I don't know. It's as if like I was locked in that box or in that cell, and then I was freed from there, and like I have no access to even I don't know. It's like why. It's like I don't know how to explain it.
Knowing as you are known.
Or like it's like try to like give like I heard Kingsnorth just say this, like let's give a rational explanation of liturgy in the church. It's like like there's really no. I mean, what? It doesn't make any sense. Or give me a rational explanation of why you love your mother, or your wife, or your child, or whatever. Why do I love my mom's potato salad more than I love every other potato salad? Doesn't make there's no reason to even answer the question because it actually doesn't exist. I'd spend a lifetime trying to explain it and never get to the tip of the iceberg.
Here he comes. What's up?
Did I like robot or something?
No.
No. We just throw all quiet. I think Luke's roboting though. I thought he was.
Am
gonna
I?
say something. Oh no, I think you're back now.
What the way that you describe it is just knowing as you are known, or the peace that passes understanding, is the way that I articulate it. It's I think you move beyond, or another way, like the prison made of thoughts. Like I quote that guy who says you can't think yourself out of a prison made of thought. I mean, once you move beyond that, I mean, that's true relational knowing. That's faith. You trust in the person even if you don't understand in a way that you could, logic out.
Okay, so maybe I don't know if I can this might derail it or take it a different route, but you said that's faith and trusting in the person. And so you're trusting and so to trust in that person with a faith that goes beyond any type of knowing, you could say that is almost kind of like love in a weird way. And I would almost, this kind of gets it to the point I was trying to say, that Um, I do think there's that way you like when Cal was talking about seeking to understand someone, and in that you're loving them, and in that way I think you know them completely. Like, because you mentioned something, Luke, earlier about like if a person is an entire world, if a person, an individual person, is like an eternity that can unfold, the only way to know them completely is to love them. That's really the only way, because you allow for basically all things. Like the only way I know to describe it is when you have a child. It's you know them, and you know their beginning from their end. If you love them rightly, you're like I'm gonna love you in the beginning. I'm gonna love you in the end. All the stuff in the middle is compacted with that, and then you know all things. And
Yeah, but no,
I really
no,
think
because
that.
you're
Sorry,
leaving, you're leaving out, you're leaving off their entire ancestry as far as like, and then every single item, or even material item that they come in contact with and every um, person that ever influenced all of that. And then so it's like that in that way, this infinite way. And then so it's like knowing a person in some sense is like knowing every being like
hmm
there is.
yeah,
It's
yeah. Which
impossible.
is
Like
no, but that's why you just love. So that's why I think it's inescapable to not forgive Hitler. Like it's inescapable because I wouldn't
oh yeah.
be who I am today, and neither would you. Like none of us would be if he hadn't done what he did. Even though it was horrific, it's like we've used that as a turning point for society to look back on and to try to form a better Adam. And it's like Hitler is still part of Adam. And so if you love your child, you're gonna have to be confronted with that reality at some point in your life. Like, can you forgive? Can you actually forgive the most horrific person that made you who you are today? It's like because you can't stand alone, and Adam is all humanity, and so it's like if you cut off one portion of that, like Sherry says, it's like you can't really just obliterate the star without destroying the galaxy. Like you can't just destroy one person, one life, because then how that person, everything exists relationally. So yeah, if you love one person in their entirety, you love all men. You love Adam because everyone is. What's that verse in Ecclesiastes? That's what everyone is. He has been named already, and it's known that he is Adam. It's known that he is man, and he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. So everybody has the same name to some way. So it's like, yeah, if you truly love, you will truly forgive. And the thing is, like, I guess there's this stance in this, where people are like, forgiveness is just flattery or it's a dismissal of judgment, and it's not. Because that's what I mean. If you have to be confronted with forgiving your enemies and loving your enemies, it will make you pay the last farthing. Like, it will make you reckon with hell. Like, you're going to go there and you're going to love your enemy and you're going to sit shiva with him in hell because he's your brother. And it's like, when you love, your enemy becomes your brother, and then you do those things. And it's just like, I mean, I think, but to me, I guess I say all that to say, like, I really think that is, in a way, that's having faith, and in a way that's letting all things. And I really think it's theosis. Like, I really am coming more and more to that conclusion. Like, that's why I say it's just like it's right there. Like to know everything is just to love, and to what is it? God is omniscient, so He knows everything, and that's just loving. And then He's all powerful because He forgives. And I'm like, and He's given both of those things to man, to Adam, and we can do both those things. We just resist them. I mean, I do the same thing. I resist it, but I don't know. That's my heresy, I guess.
So I'm curious about the forgiveness bit. Um, I think yes, but it's like do you have like some sort of image that you can give us of what that might be like? What does that look like? Kind of like through a story or something, maybe one that you're very familiar with or that you've seen somebody do. Obviously, Christ is the one that everybody's going to point to, but like, what about us mortal beings?
To forgive,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a personal story, but I don't. I mean, maybe it's relevant. Well, I had this neighbor that I lived by, and he. I lived out in the country, and he would, while I was away at work, he would like break into my house and steal stuff, and mostly my liquor. You know, it wasn't anything big, and so whatever. And then eventually he stole this tool. It was one of my dad's tools, and so I thought in my head, you know, I can hate him now because, you know, it wasn't me he stole from, it was my dad. So now this justifies my hatred and my judgment for him. And so I was thinking in my head, like, I only want him to die if I'm certain he's going to hell. Like, I don't want him to die if I had to see him in heaven. Like, I really, really hate this man. But then I would think after that, well, I need to forgive him. I need to forgive him. And so, I mean, I don't know how relevant this is. It's just like, it sounds like something so petty. But I remember that hatred trying to get into my heart was like the scariest, the darkest moment of my life, I think, where like I could literally feel it trying to consume me. And when I looked at him, I would want to vomit. And I just remember telling myself, no, I forgive him. I forgive him. And now, like, he ended up moving away. But this day, like, I would literally say I would take that man's place in hell. Like, I would do that, honestly, because I mean, I don't know how else to live other than to love him. Like, and I don't know if that's a good example, but I mean, like Cal was saying, if I'm just seeking to understand him, it's like the more I just think about him, I'm just like, he's just a child of God. Like, and I have no right to really do anything but love him.
Well, so something that I think about a lot is something that this actor named Ezra Miller said. And he's a really troubled person, from what I understand. Like, he's said and done all kinds of crazy things since then. But he said something that really gave me pause. But I think that, for whatever reason, most Christians don't really think too much about things like what I'm about to say. Ezra Miller said, he was asked, interestingly, whether, and it was interesting that the
Is this
interviewer
the Flash
asked,
dude?
I'm sorry?
Did I say something? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Are you
I didn't
asking?
say anything. I said something way back. I said something way back and way a long time ago. So our timing must be off or something. Is that the guy that plays Flash?
I don't know, actually, because I've never seen any movies with him.
Okay.
But an interviewer asked him, basically, she asked him a strange question, which was whether he thought there was any sin that is unforgivable. And he gave what I thought was a very interesting answer, because he said that, in his opinion, there are no sins that are unforgivable, because there's nothing that another human being could do which he, as a human being, could not also conceivably do when faced with the right, like, set of circumstances, limitations, opportunities, temptations. And I thought that was really interesting, because there's that saying that to know all is to forgive all. And it's strange for an all-knowing God to judge someone for doing something wrong when God knows all the reasons, why that person did what they did. Judgment is, like, by its nature, it's some negative judgment. I mean, it's as if to say, what happened should not have happened. But when you know the reason why something happened, it's strange to say that it should not have happened, especially when you assume that the reason why it happened is ultimately good. If you assume that we live in the best of all possible realities, which is usually, what believers in God believing in
I
something.
just hope we don't get what we pray for here.
Oh, the opportunity to forgive someone who does you extreme wrong. Well, it's not. I mean, on a certain level, one doesn't really have a choice. Something bad is going to happen in your life that is going to require you to die.
Yeah, just like when you were sharing that, my mind's just flashing to all the horrible places they can go. And I'm just like, good God, I hope I never have to be put through the gauntlet of forgiveness. Because I think forgiveness would actually have to be met with it like almost equal vigor to the offensive thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, at a certain level, yeah.
It's like, so I don't know. This is every once in a while you'll hear of somebody killing somebody in drunk driving, like in my town or whatever. You'll hear it on the news, and like I've tried to like find these people in their jail so I can actually send them a letter.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Reach out to them. I want to just talk to them.
So the last thing that I heard was something about hearing a story of like someone getting killed by a drunk driver in the news, something like that.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I still breaking up?
You're better.
Okay. I've had the impulse to want to reach out to like the worst of the worst and just say hi or something. And I don't know what to do more with that. But because I think that's what forgiveness would have to actually look like. It can't just be like this knowing in myself, like, oh, I forgive them. Like, I think for me, it would have to be consummated in some sort of expression.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier when I said on some level, it doesn't really matter what your attitude toward forgiveness is. Forgiveness is in some way, it's required by reality as a condition of the integration that it relentlessly seeks. It's like there's no, in reality, it's like one can only get closer to the things which one formerly regarded as other or unknown. So there's a certain way where you might say reality / God cannot forget, and things have to change. They can't remain utterly static or changeless, but they can't become simpler. There's a certain way where complexity is relentlessly added, and we distinct identities sort of hurtle closer and closer to one another, and we're unable to escape each other. We would wish, in not forgiving, to pretend as if someone real and therefore relevant to all things and to all people. When we don't forgive, it's as if we're pretending that they don't exist, or that we are somehow at liberty to infinitely or indefinitely evade contact with them.
Can I throw in a wrench? I only have like 1 minute to be on, and otherwise I'm just listening.
Oh, go ahead, Yosef.
Also, thanks to you guys.
Yeah, good to see you.
So, I mean, so far, to me, this conversation is so Christian. It's kind of hard to map in some ways for me. And even though I know, Cal, you look, and Jason too, right? Both of you do a lot of kind of Jewish theology and Bible study type stuff. But I don't understand how we're talking about judging exactly and how it's divorced from justice, nor do I really understand how justice isn't any less part of our finitude. And like, right, like it's not necessarily in a karmic sense, but like in a sort of an, you know, you touch the fire, you get burned, almost like natural, maybe a natural law sense, but maybe even beyond that. I mean, we're talking about God here, so we don't have to necessarily be down in that way. That just as much as forgiveness is required of us in our finitude, justice and the call to be just and to bring justice into the world, and God as the ultimate judge, is also part and parcel of that same movement. And like, it can't really be divorced. And I don't want to, I mean, maybe we're talking about judgment as condemnation, but really, right, like we were talking, Jason, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance, I don't think you listened to it yet, but I left you a whole like thing about Psalm 122, and like the thrones of justice that were supposed to set up in Jerusalem, and that Israel, and like this whole concept of justice coming from God into the world through those who believe or follow God and his commandments and walk in his ways, is a huge part of the biblical story. And I mean, you have Jesus, fine. I mean, I'm not going to be able to talk about this necessarily in Christian terms, but Jerusalem still gets destroyed. And that still, I mean, even for Christians, you have to deal with, that's a necessary part of justice in some sense, in some level. And yeah, there's also mercy in that. I mean, when we read and understand the destruction of the temple, like we say, thank God that God destroyed the temple and didn't destroy the Jewish people. Like, he could have taken it out on blood and bone, and instead he took it out on wood and stone. Like, that's literally, I mean, it rhymes in the Hebrew too, but like that is in fact, is literally a parable of the king and the son, where the king destroys the son's like stuff instead of like punishing the son directly. But which is very similar to a bunch of parables. The whole idea. So I don't want to just divorce judgment from justice and forget that justice is a huge part of the call here, and even to the highest part of God. Like, I don't think it's like a forgiveness of justice. So these are, you know, I'm gonna go, so you can make dinner, but talk about that.
I want
Right,
to. I do want to talk about that, because actually you always also brought up psychopaths, and oh, what's up, Jess P?
We're happy you joined. Glad
So
Luke got out of here, so Jess could move in.
100%. Yeah, I mean, given the choice between the two, I break logic and choose both. Yosef was always rightly talking about psychopaths, and sort of like, how do I account for them in this like framework of non-judgment and da da da. And that's really good. So the thing about psychopaths is, like, it's as if they're judging people all the time as, you know, just merely an impediment to. So, like, for example, you know, like, I see Jess and he has a nice car, and I think, well, Jess is a loser and I'm really great, so I should have his car, and he's just an impediment to the car, so I'll just, you know, do whatever it takes to get rid of him. And so that action is like a judgment. I pass judgment on him. You know, I've dealt with him accordingly, and then I've taken his car. But then the question is whether the action that I've performed sort of gets recorded in heaven as the thing that I judged it to be or took it to be at the time. You know, basically, whether I'll never have to say I'm sorry to Jess. I'll always view it in those terms. Even God himself will view it in those terms. Yeah, Jess was a loser. Cal was cool. Therefore, it was right and just that he should have Jess's car. And then end of story. I don't think so, because it's like the same sort of relentless integration of reality means that I'm going to experience what I did from Jess's standpoint. And then when I do, it's like I'm going to pass judgment on myself based on the consequences of my actions, but as experienced from Jess's viewpoint. Because I'm not at liberty to remain a distinct identity from Jess forever. I don't think I'll totally lose my individuality, just kind of like the way that a piece in a mosaic still remains a piece even as you see the whole. But I don't think I'm going to be at eternal liberty to never see things from Jess's point of view. And when I do, I'm going to have a very different perspective on what I did. So if the forgiver has to sort of unmake himself or be unmade by the act of forgiveness, I think it applies certainly no less to the one who's being forgiven. They have to they have to shed their old identity, and they have to lose justice is like you're calling something by its right name, right? And if I say, the act of car theft was just this good and necessary thing that should have happened because losers lose and winners win, based on this really psychopathic mindset, that's a false it's a false judgment. It's a false naming. For justice to occur, it has to be called for what it really is. But for what it really was, it's like we'll see kind of what it truly was, because there's a temptation. Like the next level is to just be like, well, he's just a psychopath, and he just does evil things because he's evil, and it's not seeing what even like the developmental limitations that attend being a psychopath, and how there's certain things that I literally cannot see or understand. And, that being the case, how right ultimately is it to hold me to some standard of justice that I could never possibly attain to? So like, there's this thing of like, to know all is to forgive all. And really like the greatest victims, in a way, I can never escape this thought, and it must get me in trouble if I talk about it, but that the greatest victims are the victimizers, because like evil is done ultimately, I always keep saying it's through ignorance, because objective morality means that not only not only does the righteousness of some right action imply the wrongness of its alternative, it also implies that one only chooses the wrong alternative for want of whatever faculty is needed to discern the righteousness or the rightness. Just like in math, you only ever get the wrong answer, not to equate it wholly to intellect or reduce it totally to intellect, because it goes to the will, which is something sort of, in a way, bound up and interdefined with the intellect, I would say, but not totally reducible to it. Like in math, the reason you choose the wrong answer is lack of whatever faculty is needed to discern the right answer. And so, I keep viewing morality in the same way. So some great victimizer, some great doer of evil is only capable of that, because it seems to me they can only be capable of that by reason of profound ignorance, an ignorance from which they ultimately have to be liberated through, cue hearts and rainbows, but through love. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Jess.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Kyle. I have a question for you. So let's say let's not say the psychopath, because I'm actually dealing with a situation similar to, not a psychopathic situation, but a situation where I did something. It was taken by someone else out of context, and it really hurt them terribly, like terribly. Like it was not good. But within context, everything I did was basically appropriate, like I feel. But I can't deny the pain that it caused this other person. So like, and it's one of those situations where I wasn't there personally for any of that. When they discovered what I had said, and then the effect it had on them, and then in the aftermath, there's been no conversation afterwards, and I've been like wrestling with, do you ask for forgiveness for something that you didn't, that hurt someone that's like out of context and wasn't intended for them to begin with, knowing that maybe it would, well, I don't know if you can know this. This is the other question. Like, is it appropriate to ask for forgiveness knowing that it may help the other person, or should you just or would that be like admitting
Like dishonest.
is that clear? I hope it's I'm not like I don't want to get specific about anything.
You mean kind of like you'd feel disingenuous if you actually asked for forgiveness because
Yeah, I
Like
feel
you're
like
not really-
it would be motivated by something other than trying to like it would be betray like okay, I'm gonna put it in these terms and see if this is even weird. It would be betraying my own integrity.
Yeah.
And like, is that appropriate to betray your own integrity to ask for forgiveness for something that maybe it isn't, or maybe it is? Like, can you do that? Is that because what I don't want to do, because part of the situation is that the other person imagined that I was questioning their integrity, and out of context, they're totally reasonable. Like what they heard and what they experienced through that was completely reasonable, but that wasn't what was in the context of anything. And so there's this strange area where this person feels, possibly, I don't even know. We haven't had the conversation because it's like, I don't even know where to start. That their integrity has been besmirched by myself.
Do you feel like you can totally understand their reaction, or do you feel like there's still some part of it that you don't understand?
Oh, I totally understand it.
Well, then it just feels to me like what you need is just some opportunity to talk to them where you can tell them like, I think I understand why you're reacting the way that you are, but then also here's the full situation and here's what was going through my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of just see what their reaction to that is. And then if the reaction is something you don't like or don't want, again, the key.
Well, I have no doubt the conversation would go well.
Okay.
So it's not even a matter of like trying to tiptoe around something. It's like I'm literally I'm stuck between, okay, I could easily just go to the person and ask for forgiveness and do that, but I feel like I would be betraying something to myself, so I can't. But
there a way sorry, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
No, but that's kind of the rock and the hard place that I'm trying to navigate. And maybe like, am I thinking too much of myself? Do it, but is it all right to sort of tarnish your own integrity?
I think for whatever it's worth, Jesus says it is.
Well, that's sort of the agreeable mindset, which I'm highly agreeable. And this is what I normally would do. Like I normally would just, whatever you need, like, I don't care. Let's just make this better.
Yeah. Well, to be forgiven or to forgive is to allow oneself, I suppose, to be stepped on, at least in some cases. I mean, the thing is, what's best is if you can just have the clarity. In other words, to let the person know the full situation. That's what's really ideal. But if sometimes we need to forgive or allow, like, to forgive is just, it's like to let there be some give. It's to allow something to happen which you don't necessarily want to happen. And sometimes you just have to allow certain things. But really everyone, the weird thing is, like, if you fear the judgment, you fear the integration of reality, the access to knowledge that you didn't previously have. You're turning away from that which you're always just like intrinsically aboriginally oriented toward all the time. We always desire knowledge. We always desire to know. And so, like, I think you're doing the person a favor by letting them know the full situation, especially if it lets them realize you weren't being intentionally rude. And then just kind of forgiving or allowing some situation, even though it doesn't make you feel good. That's kind of like your second best option, but it's nobody's best option. It's in no way mandatory or like prescriptive for you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let me make the question harder. If we're hurt by God, does he have to ask forgiveness of us? Like if we feel like God has wronged us,
Does what?
so like let's say
Or
I
hurt by-
feel like God wronged me in some way. Does God ask for my forgiveness? I don't think he does.
Well, no, I guess not, because he knows the truth and he knows he
I
didn't
would say-
wrong you.
I would say yes, but that's probably my heresy. Because if God is in the image of God is in every man, I don't know how God doesn't escape forgiveness from himself if he wants man to be one. Because I mean, Jesus is on the cross and he's complete oneness with forgiveness, and forgiveness forsakes him. Like his own people won't forgive him, and they crucify him, and it's like he needed forgiveness then, and it didn't come for him. So it's like God needs, I don't know, it's this weird paradoxical place for me where I would say yes personally, because, and I guess what I would say, maybe the reason I would say too is like, because even if we're in the wrong and we perceive God as harming us, it's like if we don't forgive him, whatever that means, even if it's like a kind of a weird false forgiveness, it's like, what is God just always some lofty abstract idea that never is in a relationship with anything? Like I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm totally wrong in saying that. I don't know. Forgiveness just has this weird like reciprocity thing. I don't know. It's just like figure eight in my head where I'm like, yeah, it all works together. But
Yeah. I mean, clearly God forgives and he commands us to forgive, and we're to forgive each other.
Yeah.
And like that's pretty clear. But then it's not very clear like when you should ask for forgiveness, especially when it's like,
yeah.
you know,
So
just
when we're
you're
talking,
thinking about just the type of person that I'm sort of temperamentally, which is to just sort of go ahead.
no, but I would say like I think like there's a weird way of like holding on to your integrity, because it is kind of a loss of your
Yeah.
own identity. I feel like if you're not, and the weird part about that feeling dishonest, because you don't want to be dishonest, because then if you're dishonest, like forgiveness isn't worth anything. It's just like some weird sort of like flattering thing just so you can restore the relationship, and it's not real and no one has to die, but it's, I don't know, it was making me think of that one Spider-Man movie where you had Iron Man at the end of the Avengers movie, he died in kind of this Christ-like way. Then the next Spider-Man movie that came out of that was kind of the whole theme where like he had to be the villain, like he had to weirdly betray his own integrity. He was gonna be like take on this, and I don't know that that's right. It's definitely very, because I don't know that being dishonest is right. Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
I think we should. I get the sense that we should probably be really honest with ourselves and say that we more have the ideal and the hope for these things, but probably not the capacity, because this is way too easy to throw around, right? Like, it's like I definitely have the hope for this, to be able to actually do this in the most extreme situations, because I have a hard enough time doing this in the most petty situations. So like, do we really have the capacity to do this, and is this vanity to kind of like talk about this in this way, like, so like this is why I think the saints and that are so useful, because like it's so easy to just throw this around, and I'm not sure how helpful it actually is to even utter these words in front of people, to be quite honest. Like, unless you have experience with this.
To throw what words around, Jack?
That like the way that we kind of talk about forgiveness in this way. It's like and I don't really mean to be like degrading. I'm really not. I think about it like yes, like saying I'm a pacifist, let's say, is even if I really,
Uh-oh.
I should never say it out loud.
Oh, it cut you off there for a second. Saying it cut you off after pacifist.
If I don't have experience with actually being one, maybe I should not say or talk about it as if I am one. That's all. And so
Well,
I don't know. Maybe I'm
yeah,
being a bit harsh.
No, I think we're no, I don't think you're being a bit harsh. I think maybe there's I think this it kind of probably has to do with what Joseph was trying to get at too. Like when we talk about these concepts, there's this weird way where it feels like judgment is lost in the moment and you have to be a pacifist with everything. And the one thing I was going to say when Joseph was talking is there's this part in one of George MacDonald's stories where the wise woman is punishing this little girl, and the little girl says like I almost something to the effect of like she's so remorseful where she's like, I just want you to forgive me. And the wise woman says, well, if I hadn't already forgiven you, I wouldn't take the time to punish you. And so like the judgment, all this fiery condemnation we think of is already on the pretense of forgiveness. Like forgiveness, that's what I mean. It's nothing if there isn't truth behind it. Like if then it's just some weird flattery thing. And you don't like nobody wants that. Like forgiveness is offensive, the same way repentance is offensive. Like if you go to someone and say, I forgive you, like if Jess went to this person and said, I forgive you, rather than sought their forgiveness, it's like that's offensive because he's saying you did me wrong. So it implies that there's a judgment that was transgressed, and that is the weightiness of forgiveness. And that is, I think, the life-giving force of it. And maybe it's lofty to talk about it in this way, but the reason I don't think it is because I really do think it costs you everything. Like it will make you pay the last farthing. Like it will make you like really, really wrestle with the tension. It won't make you dismissive of things, of being like, oh, the person wronged me, let's just dismiss it, or things like that. Like it will really, if someone really hurts you and they really, really hurt you deeply and you choose to forgive them, you don't even have to confront them. You can just say it in your heart. I forgive him, I forgive him, I forgive him. You'll find it just tearing apart yourself, and you'll die in little ways daily until you find somewhere under that you find you love them again. And what they did to you was just this like fleeting thing or something. I don't know how to describe it exactly. I think maybe where it feels wrong would be I would think it would be because there's an idea that it's dismissive of judgment, but I really think it almost beckons judgment in some weird way. I don't know if that's helpful at all, and I don't know if that's helpful to what you're saying, Jess, either. But
yeah, it's kind of like on the other side of what I'm saying, but it is like it's and I wasn't listening to the conversation that Joseph was having, so I kind of just jumped in the middle after I heard what Cal said. I think Cal's frozen in real life.
I'm here.
You're frozen in real life.
Yeah, I'm responding to Joseph because I didn't actually really respond to his question, even though I thought that I did. But I'm trying to.
1 second, I gotta.
What? All right, chat's frozen. Jess disappeared. You're there playing on your phone. What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
No, I mean we can respond to.
Dolly says that you're awesome.
But I'm not Mr. Cool. I should be Mr. Awesome then. I should change my name.
She said, "Why do you call me awesome?"
Thank you, Dolly. You're awesome too. There's one who is awesome.
Yeah, there's one who is correct.
Thank you. You're awesome as well.
Actually, yeah, I started following Dolly on YouTube because I mean, I guess, well, because Dolly's never met me, but like if anyone has a near death experience, like I know about them, and I like obsessively catalog like all like
Does she have one?
yeah, well that's what she said in one of her videos. And so like I'm this weird person on the internet, like apart from being like an amateur, or in addition to being an amateur theologian, I'm like this very obsessive like cataloger of near death experiences. And I kind of I I reach out to people and kind of almost alarm them with like how much I know about them and other near death experiencers. And like um so yeah, no, I was looking at a number of Dolly's videos, and Dolly seems very cool. I mean, very very positive person. Well, I mean, kind of knew that from her initial like interactions with Luke and different people earlier videos. But um, yeah, no, if someone has a near death experience, I go like hunting through their videos and stuff. And
You
that's
should
just
you should
what I
interview
do.
her. Add
Well,
it to your collection.
if I have time, yeah, I would like to interview more people.
Yeah, you have my Zoom account. We need to find more time now that I got that back. I'm gonna have to find more time too. Yeah. So, what do you think about Jess's predicament? I'm still kind of like torn on that a little bit because I'm not sure. Like, part of me wants to say
Well, see,
you should.
the thing is, part of it is like I'm not torn because like this whole thing, like we're still looking at like non-judgment forgiveness non-judgment from like a kind of very judgy perspective. Like you should forgive. I'm just saying, whether you forgive now or not, forgiveness is what happens. um it's the condition of reality sort of continuing to evolve, and which is another way just to retain its coherent identity through what you might or must call time, or some kind of like meta time. It's eternity even. So it's like there's always that, I don't know if I said it in this conversation or not, but like there's always that point in the analysis where the normative just gives way to the positive. um, um, Although I guess some people will sense here a paradox with freedom, and it's like, if I'm truly free, am I truly free if I'm like in some way destined to forgive? Um, and that I think of that in terms of like, I think Hegel was aware of this too, where like in the present moment there is freedom for one or another eventuality to happen. In retrospect, whatever happens is seen to have been inevitable or necessary. And so it's like there's almost like there exists the possibility of some superposition, which is a real superposition while it's in superposition. But then when it collapses, in retrospect, it's seen never to have been a superposition. And that's just something like the relationship between the present moment and then the moment just past. And so in this moment, we do have like the kind of the ability to, let's say, evade forgiveness indefinitely, or stick, to some path indefinitely. But the thing is, that's to evade forgiveness indefinitely is like in some way it's like literally the definition of hell. Something eternal is best understood as a dynamic of indefiniteness, I would argue, rather than some meaningless, like actually infinite, or like for all eternity type of like meaningless combination of words. You can't exhaust the infinite. All you can really talk about is what's up to the horizon, and sort of what's beyond the horizon isn't really defined yet. Um, uh, and So you can evade forgiveness indefinitely, but that's literally hell, and it's against the pattern of being. God, we live and move and have our being. God is like this convergence, this point of convergence between like the beautiful, the good, the true, and it's ultimately this converging in sort of existence or being itself or being himself. And everything that is in God is God, or so the classical theological formula goes. Although I don't think it was meant the way that I mean it. But if you're not in the pattern of God, then you're sort of in that existence of like non-existence. It's like your identity is being negated, really refined. Um, you know, that the condition of hell is like a negation of one's identity. It's almost like the experience per impossibly. It's the experience of non-existence. That just gets worse and worse until something breaks. It's like whatever can't go on forever won't. But the future is open in the sense that it hasn't been defined what's beyond the horizon. There's a certain way where like the only thing that exists is now, and sort of beyond the horizon of now there isn't an X or a not X in a definite state to be known or not known. I don't know if that's really helpful at all.
I'm just distracted ever since you took your vest off. I don't know what you're doing.
I'm sorry, but it's. I know that I was supremely handsome with the vest, but I see. Yeah.
There's this thing Chad said I thought was interesting because it reminded me of that passage where they ask us who can forgive sins but God alone, and I think that Chad's right, but it's clear when you read that God has given the power of forgiveness to man is what Jesus says.
Yeah.
And so it's like I do think maybe that ultimately comes from God, but that power is given to you. And then weirdly, when Christ breathes on his disciples after he's resurrected, he says, receive the Holy Spirit. And then right after that, he says, whoever you forgive, I forgive. And it's just like, that's it. It is that breath of God, as if it's air or something. That is like something like the Holy Spirit, I think, is something like the breath of forgiveness. But then Sally said, unforgiveness is horrific. It is definitely something like hell. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, well, did you already say this? Like the part where does Jesus tell Peter, like whoever you or something like this? Maybe it's an Acts. Yeah. It's like whoever you forgive, their sins will be forgiven, and whomever you don't forgive, their sins will not be forgiven.
Yeah, it's like when he's sending out the disciples. Like he says, like, go out in my name, heal the sick, cast out demons, do all these things, and everyone who you forgive will be forgiven.
That's right.
And then he also says, like, if you go into a house and they receive you, let your blessing come on it. And if they don't receive you, then shake the dust off your feet. It's that whole thing. And it's like, and already Jesus had been doing those miracles where he's been like, daughter, your sins are forgiven, and then people are, what are you talking about? And then he heals them or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already like part of the work he's doing, the healing, the casting out of demons, the forgiving of sins. Like he goes and tells his disciples to do the same thing. He's like, go forgive people's sins. Yeah.
Right. And there's that, I suspect, and then other things that Jesus says where if you don't forgive others their sins, then my Father in heaven won't forgive you. Yeah. They're definitely sort of challenges to the kind of all forgiving, if you like, five giveness theology that I was talking about earlier. And
well, you can't. That's the way I would say that is because you haven't repented. Like if you're not, you can't have forgiveness. It's just weird. You haven't received it. If you're not going to give it out, you haven't received it. You're rejecting the breath of God, the very breath of God in a way, right?
Well,
because that is the life-giving force.
In a weird way, I'm going to continue to insist that the forgiveness of God is not conditional on our own forgiveness, but there's a way where if we're if we're holding on to something, then it's like we're beholden to an ideal or a standard, a kind of rule. We're calling something good, which if we call it good, it's like we're going to be judged by that, just as we're subjecting. This is really hard to say. And the problem is that I always say this stuff way more articulately earlier in the day or in other places, and then when push comes to shove, I have to just say it again, and the words aren't there, or at least not as good as
You need
I
to put your vest back on.
So
The words are put your vest on.
So
Sorry.
If we take if we take like I'm trying to think of a concrete example. You know, anything that, like, if I have like this absolute unforgiving standard, like no one should ever, I don't know, like, weren't we talking about it in the context of veganism? Like, so the standard is no animal should ever be harmed. So I get it. I uphold the standard by eating only soy-based food, and then, but then it turns out that in order to get that food, it's like, you know, acres and acres of forest have to be torn down, and then all these animals are driven out of their natural habitat.
Not to mention the ones that end up in the inside the harvester when they're harvesting the soybeans.
Right. And so it's like, if I'm judging Jason for eating meat, and it's like that, I'm holding to that standard, then that standard, I'm also going to be judged by it. In as absolute as inflexible as I make the standard, you know, it's going to, I'm going to be held to it too. But even then, see, that's not quite what I was going to say. I'm trying to remember.
Well, you were saying that you're going to insist that God forgives us even when we don't.
Yeah.
And I think there's something eternal about that. And I feel like you're right. I guess
the thing is, if you have that ideal, if you're calling ideal or good or God something which is condemning others, then the only consequence that can have is that it's ultimately going to condemn you too. And so God is not judging you. He's forgiving you, but you're completely unaware of it. You're trapped in yourself, because you can only sort of experience God to the capacity that your soul has room for him, so to speak. And you know, because in some sense, whatever you're calling good is like the highest conception of the good that you can form, but it's still not infinite enough. Let's say it's not unlimited enough to be the real God, and you can tell because it's resulting in the condemnation of one or more other people, which means it's going to result in your own condemnation. And so, so in other words, there's a way of being judged by one's own concept of God, even as, let's say, the real God is forgiving you, and it gets complicated because what can one experience ultimately except one's own conception of God? I mean, to experience the real God, or God as such, it gets back to what I was saying earlier about whether and in what sense we can have like a sort of unmediated experience of the infinite, and whether the present moment is in fact like always that. And I think it is. But then, you know, the weird sort of paradox that results in is, even when I feel like I'm hearing the voice of God in rolling thunder, you know, it's like he's no less in this totally mundane experience I'm having right now than in the experience of something much more conventional or accessible. And sorry if I can't explain it more articulately than that. Yeah, anyway.
Just gonna say, Lance, you should hop in here. So you comment, or anybody can. Anybody's more than welcome to join if you want to. So did we resolve Jess's dilemma yet?
I mean, the more I think about my dilemma, I think I have to have some sort of conversation, but I just don't like, I'm the type of person where I'll just be like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
immediately. And I just don't want to do that. Like there's something better that could happen that I don't want to just be like,
well, I'd say I think you are sorry in that you're sorry you hurt them. And so I think that's the genuineness. I guess where it sounds like to me like porn is like if you give an apology for something you don't necessarily feel sorry for, then your apology is like just like, well, it's not a real apology or something, you know?
yeah, or I'm apologizing because I honestly feel like that's what they want, and maybe they do want that, but I don't like. But when I think about it in other ways, like I don't think that's the best thing to do, is to apologize. At least not until like they may say something where I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, but it's just
Yeah.
I don't know why I was haven't been having such a, like, it seemed like such a conundrum for some reason for me. Because I'm
I
such an
think it
agreeable
is.
person. Normally I just am like, doesn't matter. Like,
Well,
I'll
I
just,
thought if you're very low in neuroticism or negative affect, then it wouldn't bother you.
I'm very low in neuroticism too,
Yeah.
and very, very high in agreeableness.
Yeah.
I'm like
Well,
99 percentile agreeableness and like 20th percentile neuroticism.
when did it happen? How long ago did it happen?
A month ago.
That's a long time ago, relatively speaking.
Yeah, it's kind of just been like, no one said anything.
That it's bothering you is its own argument for seeking out some kind of reconciliation. Because you shouldn't get on yourself for being like, well, why does it bother me though, or it shouldn't be bothering
It
you
bothered
when
me within the last week because someone else talked to me about it.
Oh, I see.
So now, like, and they encourage me to do something. So then I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because they're probably right. I probably need to do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know what to do at this moment.
Yeah,
And there's no rush.
A Jordan Peterson in your life or something. Like, it's like don't say anything you think is untrue, you know, like that. I mean,
yeah,
but that is easier. It is easier said than done.
Like, honestly, like I think about the book of Job and how his friends wanted to bring him to a repentance, and he says, I have nothing to repent of. And they're like, oh, that's proof of your but he was serious. Like, he's like, I don't have anything to repent of. And so, like, then to see God admonish Job for that, I'm like, oh, don't just repent just because it's like, you know, I do have a desire to like humble myself, you know, but I don't want to do it in this way that's like asking forgiveness. Which I don't even know if, like, I feel like maybe I've like made too many categories or something. I've like made my own problem. It's maybe not even a problem, but it's like one of those things, like, how do you humble yourself before another person without like admitting wrong and asking for forgiveness? Like,
maybe just desiring to have the conversation is
right.
a sufficient act of humbling.
Just sitting, like, starting the conversation and listening.
Because it's not even so much about who's higher than whom, is just a matter of getting the truth out there. Because you think that someone else is looking at you through the prism, through basically a distorted lens, you know, on reality.
And also, I don't want to justify myself. I don't want to have to justify anything that I did.
Oh, I see. I
I
see.
feel like that would also mess up everything as well.
I see. I see.
And so, and those are two things I like to do. I like to ask for forgiveness, and I like to justify myself.
I don't
Like,
know. Like there's
things.
sometimes there's a kind of humility that comes from a place of congruence and strength.
Yeah.
Where I don't know. I mean, for me, it's when, you know, if I'm praying the rosary or something, and I understand that forgiveness or this kind of humbling is a requirement of just continuing to do this prayer that, you know, I feel obligated to do each day, then I feel congruent and not weak if I'm humbling myself before another person, because I know that this is what I need to look God, let's say, square in the eye. And I don't know. I don't necessarily feel weak or untruthful, or like I'm doing harm to my own integrity by humbling myself in the way that I feel is required by God. So because if you see your identity as low or subordinate in relation to something that you properly, that you can see as above you or superordinate, you are able to see, you know, that hierarchy, so to speak. You are able to see yourself as lower in that hierarchy, so it doesn't really feel like you're taking yourself down a level that you shouldn't be being taken down. Because I mean, like, but this is weird stuff that I always talk to Jason about, because it's like, if I continue to maintain that if I tell someone that I forgive you, but only because God requires it, as far as I'm concerned, your actions remain totally incomprehensible and really, in that sense, or to that degree, irredeemable. But you know, whatever, you know, God requires it, and God is someone that I have to stay on the up and up with. So I'll just say the words, "I forgive you." It just sounds like I'm ultimately doing nothing of the sort. Seems like real forgiveness involves understanding. It really just involves loving. That's and forgiveness and love. I don't know. I think Jason views forgiveness and love as different. Or love is in some way reducing to forgiveness. And for me, like, I almost am tended to go the other way. Like, just say like true forgiveness is love, and it's not forgiveness if it's unaccompanied by love. And what love is basically is to affirm someone's identity as being in the image of God, which is the image of everything that is good and desirable, the image of the unlimited, the image of the infinite. Yeah. So I don't know if that really helps. Sometimes prayer and fasting can make self-humbling very easy. I don't know.
Right.
Wow. Well, no one wants to hear that. Don't eat and pray. On top of forgiving people, my God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It gets weirdly easier to dispense this kind of like holiness type advice to people when you just know how not holy you are, and have also like totally given up trying to be holy. I don't know, because I totally have.
It's not true.
In a certain sense. No, I mean, it's hard to describe.
Just wait until
Yeah,
you get
it's that you're not focused on yourself anymore.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, there's a certain extent to which I really don't try hard enough to avoid sin and the occasions of sin, and also where it's like I don't view myself in some kind of holiness competition anymore, because like that's like Jesus said whoever would be first will be last. I mean, the way that a lot of Catholics seem to interpret that is truly God himself views as least whoever views himself as first, so that like you're in a who is least competitive competition, which, make no mistake, is completely competitive and zero sum. But if you so much as acknowledge the reality of its competitive and zero sum nature, that is what causes you to lose the competition, which makes you win, which makes you lose, which makes you win, or it's like whoever sees himself as first will be last. Maybe the alternate interpretation is because in the kingdom each one is first, or the way that God sees, he sees all as first or equally superlative, you might say, and that if you view your success as coming at others' expense, then you won't be able to see as God sees, including you won't be able to see yourself the way that he sees you, which is like the vision of God. It's like, is it your vision of him or is it his vision of you? And the answer is presumably just a simple yes. In God, the answer is always yes. What is it Paul says? Anyway, but anyway, no, I'm just completely just bouncing and caroming off surfaces like a pinball ball in the game Pinball.
Well, it's definitely good talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's good talking to you too. Just
live on the interwebs.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad you have done.
Yeah, I've been kind of like busy with work and stuff. And
get thyself upon this live stream.
Is Lance there?
I told him to hop on. He said he was smart enough for the conversation, but little does he know that you're a loser with a nice car. We've already established that.
Oh,
I think we
man.
established Chad was a loser as well. Somewhere here.
He's just a loser.
Dolly said I'm awesome, and we have Mr. Cool Man, so
Dolly,
everybody else is losers.
Dolly, do you want to get on the live stream? Dolly and Lance should get on the live stream.
Yeah, both of you hop on here. Sandy's in the comments too. Is this as complicated as it sounds?
I made it complicated, and in fact, if we had more juice in the battery, I would make it 6 or 7 times more complicated.
He would. Make it simple, Jess.
Make what simple?
I don't know. Whatever's complicated that Cal.
I already think I'm like a few levels deep Inception wise. I need to start making my way out. I'm like, what's in the final level of that land of like, it's just the ocean and the empty city.
Oh, he's back.
There's Luke. Luke!
What up?
There he is.
What up?
Oh my God.
What up, G's? What did I miss?
Oh, just I was
We laughed,
confessing
we cried.
something, and then my priest, Mr. Cool Man, was offering advice. He told me to pray.
Did he?
And fast. Don't forget the fasting. Oh my God.
Yeah, I say that while I totally like just I eat candy and ice cream like every single night. I haven't fasted in like, well, no, actually I fasted not too long ago, but still like I put on like what 20 pounds or something. I'm not practicing what I preach. Let's put it like that.
I went to Cal's house and we ate butt together.
Mm-hmm.
There was candy as well, but there was definitely butt.
It was. Can we say it?
Good.
Can we say it on the Tetragrammaton channel? It was pork butt.
Yeah.
Pork butt?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Actually, it was pork loin. I don't know if that. Why are you guys were calling it butt? I don't think loin is the same as butt.
It's not.
You guys are ignorant on basic.
Yeah,
pork
loin and pork butt are totally different.
Yeah.
Jacob eats pork.
Butt so bad.
He doesn't eat pork, does he?
That's true. I think so.
Yeah. He does.
Oh man, sorry, Jacob.
Well, we don't forgive him. He is always saying that to me. He says, "I don't forgive you." So see ya in hell.
So you're like an admin on his channel, Jason? Is that how you
Yeah.
got control of the ship?
Yeah, I can do this anytime. Yeah, I've told him before because he mentioned, reorganizing it, and I was like, man, I'm sorry, I don't get on there enough because I was just working 2 jobs this year, and I was hardly ever on here to stream. But he insisted that I stay part of his Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's Ladder. Well, it would
Yep.
be Jason's elevator. Jason's escalator.
That sounds good. Yeah. Jason's escalator. Sounds about right.
Oh, I listened to that video of you and your band playing at that show at some outdoor.
Yeah, the Apple Festival.
Yeah, that was cool, man.
Thanks. That was a fun show. Yeah, it's been me and the 2 girls in it and my little sisters, so it's fun getting to play with them.
The
And
2
April.
girls are your sisters?
Yeah. Yep.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Family band.
Yeah. Yep. And Abram, I've played music with him since we were like I think like early years of high school. So it's weird. He'll tell me stories and I'm like, yeah, I don't remember that at all. I don't know how people remember stuff. I'm like, is this really happening? Why do I not remember it?
I remember all kinds of things.
That's good. Does that make you sad?
Sometimes I feel pensive or forlorn.
You shouldn't feel those things if you're low in negative emotion.
Or maybe I'm higher than, I don't know, maybe my 20% is all stacked into like melancholy.
I suspect that you are more neurotic than the instruments say you are. I think there might have been a little bit of mismeasurement or something. But at the same time,
or maybe as you get older, do you get more or less neurotic?
You're supposed to, if anything, less, but maybe there's not a clear correlation with age either way.
Maybe the worries of the world have gotten to me, Cal.
No, I don't really know. Don't really know what to say about that.
Luke, are you still cleaning?
Perfect love casts out fear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where this comment came from. Oh, I think I missed some comments above it or something. I thought it was random. I would appreciate it more if it was just random.
Someone said pepperoni, pork belly.
No, it wasn't pork belly. It was pork loin.
Yeah, those are different.
They're having an essentially different conversation.
Seems like it. We were trying to talk about lofty things, heartfelt things.
Yeah, set your mind on the things above, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I've often wondered about memory, like if I did remember more, if it would just cause me to kill myself, because I think about elephants.
Please.
And I'm like, that idea where elephants never forget? And one time I was watching this channel, this show, National Geographic show about elephants, and this mom elephant had to just watch its baby die in front of her because they were too far from like water. And then I'm like, and it has to remember every detail of that? I don't know if that's true, that elephants never forget. What?
People are like that too. They watch loved ones die.
I know, but I would just think it would make me so sad all the time.
Yeah.
Well, there's that weird thing where like God remembers Noah. Then when Jonah's in the fish, it says Jonah remembers God. And there's like this thing about memory and connecting between God and people. And even in Job says, like he's like imagining like going down into Sheol, like dying, going down, and then God remembering him.
Yeah.
And then he would be
It's that's we were talking about that when you were at my house, Jason, right? Where I've been thinking about like what it would mean if God, like, see, is God's memory, let's say, is it best characterized in positive terms as memory, or is it better understood negatively as like some inability to forget, an unforgetting? I think that's what anamnesis means. And you might even say it's like a logical inability to forget, because for God, the ultimate reality, if he were to, let's say, lose sight of some fact which was once relevant, and it becomes for that reason totally irrelevant. If something that once existed can pass utterly out of existence in such a way that it is no longer relevant in any way, shape, or form to any remaining thing or person, or event, then that would be like that would be like for it to cease to be real. It would also like lead to some kind of contradiction. I feel that would like propagate through the entire system of existing events, real occurrences, real relations. And it would, and see, there's also ultimately a way that I keep equating God with the real universe in the similar way that consciousness is equated or identified with its contents, even though consciousness in another sense is seen as something else, something kind of apart from its contents.
Hey.
The kind of
Hello.
kind of nothingness, even as its contents are seen or said to have a kind of finitude, kind of either X or not X identity to them, and there's a certain way where I keep seeing like God is the infinite is imagining himself in it through finitude. It's like finitude is like a mirror, and so there's always like that a relationship, an identity relationship even, but it's a paradoxical one that exists between God and his reality, the reality that draws its being from him. He can't be utterly separate from it. In fact, he has to be whatever oneness exists beneath God and the creation that he transcends. Anyway, sorry if that's, but anyway, talking about like the unforgetting, the inability to forget, and that's kind of again what's behind the relentless integration of reality. So events can't be forgotten; they can only be sort of transmuted or transformed or redeemed, seen in some larger context that changes their meaning.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. By the way, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
Nice to
I
meet you.
basically just hopped on here to say hi and nice to meet you. I
Yes,
think I'm creating an echo.
You're not going to share your NDE?
Hey?
Yeah,
Sophie?
about your cow was supposed to interview
Right
you,
now.
but
Oh, don't
I'm
be
just-
crazy. No,
I'm
I'm
joking.
not going to do it now. But I am definitely open for that. Is that me creating that echo? Can you hear it?
I can hear it. I think it's coming on your end, but I don't know why.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Is it me?
Anyhow, Luke, how are you?
Hi.
Luke, you're all cozy up to the camera.
Practical
When I
question.
see your face, yeah, please do.
No, I want you to finish now when I see your face. You can't just stop that.
No, it's just mosaic vision. That's all.
Hmm.
It just pops up immediately. Anyhow, you go.
Well, so if I'm selling something on Facebook and I don't want to be here anymore, should I trust the person and just set it outside and have them just leave the cash in the mail slot? because I want to go home.
How much cash? Like, how much is the item?
$10,000.
$10,000? Don't do it.
I'm
Like,
just kidding.
why would you do that with $10,000, Luke?
Well, it's like pocket
Yes.
change for me.
He has faith in people. He has faith in God's creation. That's what it is.
That's what
Now
I'm
you
saying.
have to do it. Yeah. Now you have to.
That's
do
what
it.
I was saying. I was like, I want to trust people.
How much money is it again? Did I miss that part?
It was $10,000. He's selling the house.
$10,000.
What?
It's not.
Luke, where are you moving to?
I'm not
Are you
moving.
moving?
I'm getting rid of. I'm not moving. I'm just selling a table and and some chairs.
Oh, okay.
It's a really nice table.
I believe you.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm gonna trust them. I'm gonna go keep hauling chairs outside.
Hmm. Okay.
So, Al, I
I
have a
don't really
question.
know the context behind that. Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm listening. Sorry.
No, I didn't
Feedback
hear what
is
you said.
weird. No, I didn't say much. I was just thinking out loud, so I guess I should just stop doing that. Anyway, you said you had a question.
Well, I had a question for Cal about the idea of God not forgetting, and there's that weird part in I can't remember one of the Old Testament things where it talks about where God commands Israel to forget Amalek. He's like, remember to forget them. It's something really strange. Or like, okay, it's just a weird way of phrasing it. Remember to forget these people, and like blot them out of their book or something like that.
Sure.
I've never been quite sure what to even do with that implication. There's few things in the Bible where they still remain on the fringes for me. Like we've talked, like I'll feel kind of solid on some idea, and then I'll read something like that, and I'm like, what is this even implying? And then the other ones, Absalom just always gets to me.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
What about Absalom?
I think the question of can someone really be lost, like truly lost, and just every time I read that story,
can someone who is your son like be not your son? Can he not be like some like translation of your identity that's even like more? It's like your son resembles you even more than you do somehow. Paradoxically, it's like he's more dear to you than your own self, and no matter what he does. And what I really love about the Absalom episode is the way that even though his own son was perpetually trying to kill him, when his son is lost, there's David instantly goes into mourning because he's never lost sight of his son as more dear to him than his own self, really. That he's never seen his son as not his son, regardless of what he's done, and regardless of like how, because it's like incomprehensible, like how can you see like such a ungrateful, like even psychopathic person as like what do you see in them? It's a mystery. It remains unanswered, except David never not sees Absalom as his yeah.
When Absalom dies, he cries out, "My son!"
Yes.
Yeah. That I have died in your place.
And there's this terribly heart-wrenching song by Eric Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
He's a composer.
Yes.
And it's this choir piece
called
"When David Heard."
Yes.
Like, it will tear your heart out.
I love that piece. Jason shared it with me.
Yeah, it's insane. I think Jason probably shared it with me too. It's heartbreaking.
Super
In
good.
a good way? Or
Yeah, in a great, like it is like the choir just sings over and over again, "My son," and it'll tear your heart out.
Okay.
Bye, Luke.
Yeah,
My Luke.
yeah, I'm also gonna say bye because it's very late or slash early, but I'm not gonna tell you the time. But yeah, it was nice to meet you. When
Nice.
it's more like I'm very sleepy, so yeah.
It was great to
So
meet you
am
too.
I.
But I'm
Yeah.
Hopping on.
yeah. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, that song, man. I've cried to that
Yeah, I
song.
know it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that part just every time I read that, it's just the grief of David is just so real.
Wept and he wept. That's such a great song.
I know. Oh my gosh.
We should drop it in the chat for people to
How do
know
I?
whereof we
All
speak.
right. What? Find it on YouTube or something? I can maybe. Well, we might get copyrighted
What's
if I play it.
What's
I
the
don't
best
know.
version?
Well, we just put the link in the chat or
Have to
something,
look.
or in the episode description.
I'll put it in the chat. This should be it here. Let me see. The 9 minutes long. So good though. It's worth every minute.
Luke wants me to talk about carbonara, spaghetti carbonara. Do you guys know what carbonara is?
No.
It's just like it's just like it's like Italian macaroni and cheese almost, but it's spaghetti.
Oh, it's a
And
carb.
yeah, they like put it's kind of ungodly if you ask me, because to me it really looks like 3 a.m. kind of stoner food, like the way that just they put like raw egg on spaghetti noodles, and they just grate some cheese over that and some pepper.
That sounds delicious.
And
not
they
good.
make a really big deal out of it, and like if you do it wrong, then you're messing up something super like precious and refined, and it's like really. He wants me to do it in an Italian accent. I can't do an Italian accent, you know. I can only imitate that one guy whose podcast we were both listening to. That Daniele Bolelli, History on Fire. That guy. I can only do him because that's the only model for Italian accents that I have. But no, like the carbonara was something I was ranting about for a little while because it was bothering me. People were like shaming other people for failing to do carbonara right, and I was like looking at what it was, and I was like, this just looks like stuff that a stoner would pull out of their fridge at 3 a.m. It doesn't really look like some really refined food to be about it being made properly or not properly. But you know, I was getting pushback from Luke and also Nate, who's a chef, about no, it's really something to be taken very seriously. But I don't think so.
Hi, Sandy.
Hello.
Looking up spaghetti carbonara. No to the pork, but
No, the pork butt.
interesting.
We were in Texas. You know, I don't normally eat pork, but Cal told me everything's bigger in Texas, so I said, well, gotta have butt.
Chicken,
This
yes.
is so it was really good talking to everyone. Nice to meet you, Sandy. I need to go, but I'll follow this live stream if it continues. It was really fun, guys.
I thought you were going to say, I'll follow up with the really best recipe you've ever seen for spaghetti carbonara.
No, really? No, I continue to know nothing about it. I don't know.
Stay that way. Don't
But-
ever change.
All right. Well, okay. I'll see you guys later.
Risk making
Like
it.
how-
If you like it.
Right. Yeah. No, I will, and that'll probably change my attitude toward it. Right. No, like completely. Yeah. No, I should
Don't-
definitely try to make it sometime
don't-
sooner rather than later. All right.
Might as well.
Yeah. However you leave. Boop, 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 boop.
Kansas City barbecue is better.
What?
Kansas City barbecue is better than Texas barbecue.
Got no clue.
It-
No clue.
There's
Nope.
no
The mustard based?
I
No.
gotta look this up.
No,
now.
North Carolina is like
Kansas.
vinegar.
mustard and vinegar, or South Carolina's mustard, North Carolina's vinegar, or either that or
Something.
vice versa. I forget which is which.
Wait,
What's
mustard
Kansas City?
Kansas City's dry rubs and tomato-based sauces.
Ooh, that sounds good.
So
What's
like
Texas?
Kansas City's like pulled pork, brisket, ribs, you name it, we do it, and it's so good.
No.
Best barbecue in the world, and I'm not joking.
Best piggy
Yeah.
butt.
Sorry.
Nice.
If it was
What's
beef,
Texas?
maybe.
No, there's beef brisket,
Yeah.
burn ends. Yep.
Yeah. I
It's
quit
so
eating
good.
pork a few years ago, so
Yeah.
it's not gonna. I've accidentally eaten it once or twice, and then just kind of like, not good for me. Nope, not happening.
Not what right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the first time I'd had pork in a long time. I just don't ever really crave it. I'm not like I'll eat it if someone makes it. It's just not like a.
We
One
used
that
to, I used to eat pork chops and stuff all the time with my ex, but Jack didn't eat pork, so I just quit eating pork. And then health-wise, I went, gee, this is pretty good. So for two good
Yeah.
reasons, I'm just like, no, don't do pork.
I stopped eating beef because it was just so much money. You know.
I mostly eat chicken. It's not quite.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh my goodness.
Ralph.
I have a question for Jess.
Yeah.
The Kansas City thing, is that going to happen?
I need to talk to Lance. Lance is in the chat, supposedly.
What is
Oh.
South African?
Well, because Lance moved to Texas, so he's in Houston, and he had to fix his house and start a new job and like reorganize things at his new job, and he's been a busy man. So, Kansas City has been slacking off.
Okay. Well, I know there's talk of a Texas thing and a Kansas City thing, and of course, the Israel thing is sort of.
Oh yeah, no.
That's
What's
going to
this
be on
Kansas City
pause
thing?
for a while.
I'm
So-
going to the Arkansas thing this weekend.
Oh,
Are
good.
you really? Oh, I want to so
I'm gonna
badly.
drive down there tomorrow.
How
Oh,
far is that for you?
Who, me?
5 hours.
Oh,
That's not bad.
No, 5.5.
If I lived in the States and it was 5 hours, I would go too, probably.
I just got a motorhome, but I can't really use it right now because I got to fly to India next week. So, but I just drove it from Oregon back to Tennessee. That's how I saw Cal because I went stupid.
You should have
loop.
stopped by Kansas
Slow
City and
down.
had some Kansas City barbecue.
Would have made more sense, right? Yeah, it would have been more of a straight line. I went like way down and then
Into the deep
saw
south.
Cal and Craig. Yeah,
Ah.
in Texas.
Okay, so
I
there
told
are
him to put in
serious
there.
questions here.
Yes.
Somebody needs to decide if the South African barbecue beats the Kansas City barbecue. And Phlebas wants to know if Paul's still on the fence about Symbolic World.
Yeah, I haven't made plans next year. So I've got two sons now that are engaged to be married, and they're both going to be married. They could both get, so kind of two weddings in 2024.
Yikes.
So one is going to be in the summer in Italy. The
Whoa.
other will probably be here in California, but I don't know when. So, schedules are sort of up in the air right now.
Well,
I would love to go to the Symbolic World Conference. I've got lots of frequent flyer miles now, so I could probably swing that on miles. And the only issue is I have 4 estuary Sundays a year. And I could maybe go and, sneak out Saturday night and get back to Living Stones to do the Sunday thing. But there are lots of issues involved in that.
I have a question, unrelated question. There's something that popped up in the comments here. I'm not sure what to do. It says $10. Does this go to Fountain of Comfort? Do I need to do something with that? I mean, I just kind of took over Jacob's channel.
It's
Does
inside
it-
Jacob's channel. It goes to Jacob, and he can decide where it goes.
Oh, cool.
So
As long as it gets to him somehow, because I don't know what I need
it
to
will get
click
to
something
Jacob
with it. Or,
first.
all
Or
right.
seven-
Yeah.
or a super chat, like $6.50 will get to Jacob of the $10 super chat, something like that.
Oh, okay. I hear people talk about super chats. I never knew what that was.
That's a super chat right there. CW Week showing his super chat skills.
Nice. How fancy.
All right, guys, we're trying to raise $600 for Jacob. So
Okay.
every donation helps.
But does it
What are we
not?
raising $600 for Jacob for?
I don't know.
So not
think
for
we're just
Jacob.
It just came up with it. Let's do it.
CW kicked it off with $10. We just need $590.
All right. Am I gonna have to take my shirt off?
Yeah. It'll be a faith
That's too
gift.
far. All right.
Hey, let's see. Where are we?
If I have to search for Jacob. It's on Jacob's channel. Don't worry about it.
For fountains of comfort.
Yeah.
The way Jacob names organizations.
Okay, let's not. Well,
How are
it's
you doing, Sandy?
something- Hey, I'm doing good. It's nice
Good.
to see you. We never talk.
No, we don't. I haven't been on Voices much. I'm right now. Oh, nuts! I'm right now finishing up putting a video up for. It'll come out in 2 days. But I just got back, so I'm just getting back into being back. I was waiting on a plumber this afternoon, and of course he didn't show. And he calls 2 hours after he said he was going to be here. And, oh, can I come tomorrow? Typical tradesman.
I shouldn't laugh.
I waited for an hour, not starting to do anything because it's like I'm just going to get interrupted. Then it was like, well, I'm not going to get anything done this afternoon if I keep waiting. So then I made my video. So anyway,
I liked your conversation with Rafe about
Yeah, it
the
was good, wasn't it?
conference. It was good. I kind of felt like I got a vibe of what it was like.
yeah.
4 Sundays. Do you only get 4 Sundays off a year, Paul, so you can go to 2 estuary things?
Well, I get 8 Sundays off a year. I get 4 for me, vacation, and then 4 estuary, because a few years ago I realized if I was going to do this estuary thing, it would involve weekends. So I basically asked the council if I could have 4 Sundays for estuary because it's part of the ministry of this church. So they said yes. And then we had the pandemic, so I didn't take any for years. And then after the pandemic, I started taking them, and the council's like, oh.
Good way to sneak it up on them.
Yeah.
I wish I could have more, but I work every weekend. Like I would really love to go to the one that Ted's doing. That would be right up my alley because I love writing and poetry and stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, working retail, it's within you don't get to take any holidays during Black Friday and Christmas months.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if he does one in the spring or the summer.
Well, Grim Grizz is going to be driving for UPS, right, for the holiday season.
Is he really? Oh wow!
I would love. I think we need to have a mission for people to send in their Ring doorbell cams of Grim Grizz wearing brown UPS uniform delivering packages to people's homes. I want that footage.
Hey, Grizz would be really amazing at creating the whole vibe around that, but you would have to do it because you probably have a wider reach to get to the general population.
That's true. I should make a special video. We need a bounty. That's what we got to raise. All right, get your shirt off, Jason. We need $100 for a bounty.
All right.
The things that people actually respond to. Oh shoot!
Oh, what a world.
Yeah, will they make him shave? I would hope
I
not.
don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of facial hair standards UPS has.
UPS, what do you call that?
You're good looking it up.
UPS.
United Parcel Service.
No. What's the word for how whether you have to uniform and
That's true. I totally
And-
forgot about that. There's a video of driving with a shirt on. Whoops.
it's
It's
that-
already out there for free. It's not worth anything.
That epic shirtless video of you in your in your convertible going through the Tennessee hills.
Cal's comment Ferris Bueller's Day On. Or something. Oh man.
I forget what you were talking about, but you were talking about just deep Jason theological stuff. Just
Yeah, just around.
shirt
I
off.
actually
and
have
something.
I have a tan line of a seatbelt that's like on my chest permanently. I'm driving in that convertible so much without my shit.
That's so funny.
That's the real deal.
Yeah.
My camera's in the way. Make my little
What was this
descriptions.
about YWAM, Jess? Yeah,
Oh.
Oh, there's like a YWAM
I saw that in
reunion
the chat.
happening in the comment section.
yeah, I didn't know what was going on. It was kind of interesting.
I don't
It's a
know,
YWAM is.
but somebody lost a girl to them.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Ah,
I don't know, but someone lost a girl.
YWAM.
Yeah, YWAM. I'm sure YWAM has put many marriages together.
I met my wife through YWAM.
Yep. Young people right after college, full of enthusiasm and idealism, and out on a mission trip, working together. That's the best matchup stuff you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
People
And
be
every 3
falling
months
right
there were new
left.
students coming in.
What's that?
And every 3 months there were new students.
That's right.
So if you didn't have any luck those first 3 months, it's always the next school.
What's the next batch? Oh, you guys see the Tammy Peterson rosary testimony video?
Oh my, that was so
Oh.
good.
No, tell me about it. Was it
Oh,
new?
before I forget to, Paul, did you post? You were talking about something from Europe. You were talking to Andrea with the band.
That will come out with the German festival videos that
Okay.
Cassidy has.
Awesome. Okay, I'm just got that in the back of my mind. I got to watch for it.
Yeah, that was really good. That went really well. And I mean, I haven't really spoken about a lot of that stuff. And I guess I was thinking about a lot of that stuff. You know, we had that conversation with Jonathan Peugeot a few years ago. And so that was really helpful for me, that whole process. So it was cool. It was good. Glad it was recorded.
That Tammy Peterson rosary video, I watched it twice. Like it was amazing.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
Tell
I've
me,
got to
tell me
stop
about
looking
it.
at
Andy, I am offended.
Okay, so I'm really sorry. How did I offend you? Actually, was it
No, I was joking.
Did everybody laugh at you when you were a kid? I mean,
Did
seriously,
everyone laugh at me?
That's a terrible thing to have done to you.
Oh no,
Stop
I'm
laughing,
fine.
Jacob, or I mean, Jason.
What? Calling me Jacob. Now I'm offended. Oh my god.
Oh, what would you like to be called?
You can call me anything you want. People have been making up their own things to call me for years. So you won't offend me.
I believe him. He's Dutch. They're pretty, tough breed. Are you
So
very
what
Dutch?
happened?
You're not Dutch.
Me?
Yeah, you're more American in my mind. But are you actually are you full-blooded Dutch, or are you like my children?
I don't know,
My youngest
what are Dutch? So my father's side is Dutch and Jewish, and my mother's side is Frisian. So
Oh, that kills it. Forget it.
I got a bunch of that stuff in me.
Frisian, no.
Frisian, Dutch, and Jewish. There you go.
Good. Can you imagine?
Very
No, I was
stubborn genes.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like the castle in Edinburgh? Or
It was
Edinburgh,
really
or how
cool.
you say it.
I can't say it. I'm sure nobody on this stream can say it.
What?
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
I every time I said it, the Scots would look at me like, you're not saying it right. Just like I went to Australia, every time I tried to say something there, they're like, you're not saying it right. So this castle was totally cool. It was Edinburgh was a really cool city. But Luke wants us to talk about Tammy Peterson. Is that what Luke is doing?
Oh yes, he did ask.
Apparently, everybody.
So Edinburgh Castle was totally cool. So the Tammy Peterson video, let me see if I can drop a link in. Okay, I gotta join the chat. That means I gotta log in. Allow.
Have you noticed, Paul, that Peterson's been talking more about the book of Job?
Yes.
He said he wrote a chapter in his new book, but it keeps just coming up in conversations, like he's keeps stewing on it.
Yes, and I always think of you when he does.
I always think of me too. every time it comes up, I'm like, I need to make a video about this, but then I don't have time, and then I'm like, well, it's too late. A week has passed.
Oh, that's not long.
I know. So I'm kind of joking. Like I should just make a video anyway, but
making my notes for my video that I just made. So yes, the Tammy Rosary video was really lovely. It was moving. It was powerful. Some Protestants are going to get triggered, but because there's a lot of Rosary and Mary in it. But I thought it was a really lovely video that just kind of was Tammy Peterson's Rosary testimony. That's exactly what the video was.
Cool. Does it have it in? Is it informative for people who hang out at the Catholic Church and our members?
Yeah, it's a lovely video. It's lovely.
yeah, and it's kind of about her healing too that happened when she was recovering from cancer. Like it is seriously miraculous, and they don't make a big deal about it, but they just explain what happened, and it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Miracles do happen still.
They do.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is this is always the way it goes with miracles. In that people like to think that, oh, if I experienced a miracle, and it's like, no, people experience miracles all the time. Not all the time. Miracles happen, and it didn't stick with the disciples. They still, ran away when Jesus got arrested, despite all the miracles that they had seen. So what makes you think it's going to be different for us? So, but it's a lovely story. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep. I think of that every so often. Think of that's why not the reason I would follow Christ. I had this discussion. It was towards the beginning of the year with someone very close to me, and I was asking we were just kind of talking about why I would follow Christ, or how you know that Christ is the Son of God, and I think that's how it came up. But then he had said to me because of the works, and I knew from context it meant the miracles, and I was just kind of like, well then, why wouldn't I follow Moses or anybody else? Anybody else that performs a miracle, because those things, like you said, have a way, they tend to be fleeting. I don't know why, or they're not as impactful in a weird way. I was talking to this with Cal, who was on earlier. I was talking to him about it once, how there's a way you could experience this crazy miracle and it impact you less than you could be out walking and just see a tree. And it's like, you could see a tree and just something happens to you inside. It's just, whoa. And it's like this life-changing moment, whereas the miracle is like, it's life-changing, but in a different way. And then it just kind of loses its weightiness as time goes. But
maybe it's supposed to. I still remember miracles from gosh, I still remember miracles that people shared with me from when I was in my teens, you know, and the people I hung out with, I just assumed miracles were just part of normal life. You know, you just, they happen or they don't happen. And, you know, there's something that's ordinary, but out of the ordinary, you know, like, yeah. Okay. So like 2 examples, my, Bible study I was at, when I was in my teens, like about somewhere between 20 and 100 of us met regularly at sort of the youth leaders from the Anglican church in town. And they started a whole bunch of youth stuff because of their kids. They wanted to, you know, 2 close friends of theirs that used to come to the Bible study, they'd gone away somewhere on vacation, and they were talking about it when they came back, that they had car trouble on the road. So they got themselves into a gas station and said, no idea what's wrong with our car, but it started making weird noises back down the road. And we figured we better get it checked. And he said, well, what kind of stuff? And they said, well, there was this weird noise. They said, are you leaving, Jess?
Yeah, I got to run. We got youth group. So
Speaking of youth, yes.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Gotta go be Christian someplace.
Nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, the mechanic says to them, well, like what? And they went, there was this weird noise, and now the gauge, like it says that we don't have any gas, but we know we just filled up and this and that. So he looks under their car and he goes, it says you got no gas because you have no gas tank. And he's like, I'll go get it. I can put it back on. It can't be far because you can't drive that far on fumes. He drove like 10 miles down the road to pick up their gas tank and came back with this weird look on his face going. So which point they just started talking about their lives and what they believed and stuff. And so that's kind of weird, but it's not a big thing. Like, I mean, seriously, if the gas tank fell off, you could just as easily fix that by pulling to the side, calling your AAA or whoever and getting help, you know? I know at least 2 or 3 people from my previous church who, I mean, they were healed of some pretty serious stuff. I know this because I was part of the prayer group, people praying for them, and got to, you know, like see and hear the prayers and at the same time then see the outcome.
Yep.
And I won't say any more than that, but yeah, one of them was to do with a cancer that should have taken somebody out in his 40s, and he's had a few birthdays since. Anyway, and I still think he's going to live to 84, even though his wife said she figured I was dyslexic. But I love those people. But no, miracles happen.
Yeah.
They just do.
Yep, definitely.
They do.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is often the hard thing is when we expect them, or sometimes when they happen to people we think are unworthy, and then they don't happen to people we think are worthy. I mean, it gets really interesting when it gets into our economy of worthiness. Those things get hard.
Okay, and let me ask you a tough question back on that. Within an economy of worthiness, and going back to what Jason was saying about, well, then why don't I just believe in Moses and the prophets? Because I do. Like, I mean, I've kind of written some of my weird stance on where I stand between Judaism and Christianity and why and how. I've always believed in talking to God and getting an answer back. And I've always believed in some things, and listening to Joseph now sometimes, you know, talk about, what did he say? He was telling me once, he's something about in Judaism, there's this belief that some souls sign up pre-birth for the tough stuff. You know, we were talking about my life, but quite seriously, when I look at some of those things and let them drift into the category of miracles and the category of how God how God works redemption in our lives, because redemption is a miracle in itself, I think. So my ex is somebody who was pretty, solid carpentry guy, very strong his whole life. 150 pounds of massive bone structure. And he's flat on his back now in long-term care eating goo, like pablum, sort of pureed food, because he gagged a few times and they don't want to be responsible for giving him pneumonia.
Yeah.
I took him the book from the last book club when we were studying Lonely Man of Faith. I had it with me one day and read it to him. He asked if he could borrow it. And I said, sure, because I'd been praying about and asking people how to help him, because he just lays there. He's got use of one arm, maybe, and a little bit of oomph to roll himself over it, but not go anywhere. So I left the book with him, and I came back the next time a week or so later, and he said, oh, I read some of this, and he wanted to talk about it. And I'm like somebody read it to you? No, he managed, I guess he shoved it against the chair or something. Anyway, he's reading this book, and he said to me, why do you think God let me have 5 strokes? And we chatted for a minute about that from the perspective of some of the things that Jacob says in Judaism about how if you have something unresolved, that how the forgiveness and reconciliation thing works is in a continuous pattern, right? So I was like, that's an interesting question. Why do I think God let you have 5 strokes? As in like, why am I still here? And then he says, and why does he love me so much? And as I said, well, I went to answer. He said, I'm so blessed, So here's a miracle. I have the opportunity to visit a man who I couldn't convince for his whole life of things I think he's learning now or hope he is. He's stuck in a Catholic long-term care and has not in his entire life had anything good to say about the Pope or the Catholic Church. But he'll say how good the staff are to him, even though he doesn't like being there because of the big guy, he says, and he doesn't mean God. And he's like, I'm watching the things, and I'm like, this is a major miracle that I've been praying for ages, but it doesn't look like what we think of when we say miracle. Most people would say miracle would be, so he has no more problem. God takes the problem away. There's nothing for him to solve. He gets out of bed, he gets up, and he goes on with living life exactly how he was. That's not a miracle. That's a bad place. Much as I would love that if he had more things he could do. But he said to me something about the book, and I said, I'm glad you're liking it. And he said, well, we've always had similar taste in books. And he does. Like, he loves those deep, dig down conversations about philosophy and theology and the Old Testament. Oh my goodness, he talks about, he talks about Genesis and Sinai as much as Jacob does. I mean, like, he's talks about all of those things and how you connect each king and each prophet to all the different, he can tell you the whole thing, always has. But he needed an opportunity to have a reason to ask some tough questions without, like, outside of the context that he was used to asking them in. I think that's a miracle.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Life is, so the video I just finished making is, I did a little bit of, people wanted me to do some stuff on the Jordan Peterson, John Lennox thing. Life is not usually quite what we think it is. And I think the story that you just told us, Sandy, is a great example of it. And again, as a pastor, you see these kinds of things all the time. That we sort of have this narrative that is sort of guided by these assumptions of what is good, what is important. And then life seldom, you find people who seem to get all of that, and then, okay, they've gotten everything they want. Yay. And there's no glory, there's no wonder, there's no mystery. And then there's a story like you just told. And again, those kinds of stories are not unusual. It's also not unusual that someone has an accident, they're debilitated, and they're angry with God, and they're bitter, and they just cycle down into bitterness. One of the most, what I think one of the most important things Jordan Peterson said after his illness was he recognized that to succumb to bitterness and self-pity would have been, in some ways, the worst fate. And part of how he knew that was, again, because of he didn't put these together, but I am, because of his daughter. And he learned it from his practice, and he really encouraged his daughter to not go there, and she didn't. And so then when his time of trial came, he didn't either. And if he had, he would probably be dead. And he would not be enjoying the kinds of things he gets to enjoy now. So life is this reality that is very different from what we think it is. And the story you just shared with us is a great story, because it is so true, and you see these things regularly. So good for him. Good for you. Good for recognizing good for seeing the story, and I think a proper way.
I kind of like God a lot.
That's
And one
good.
of the amazing and tough things in life is that I tend to see people actually see them so, yeah, like with John, it's kind of, I couldn't get this little kid out of my mind when I would watch some of the difficult stuff. I could literally see some of the things he would hint at from childhood or growing up that, contributed to some of the tough spots. I couldn't get it out of my, I couldn't, it's not like I obsessed about it thinking wise, but there's this way that we connect with people that, yeah. I think it's interesting that recently when I talked to him, he actually feels like he's grown up a bit. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for letting me share it.
Well, it was beautiful. I'm glad you shared it.
Mm.
So I see Laura's here. Why don't you jump in, Laura? Huh? She's probably
Yeah, get in here, Laura. I don't think I've met Laura, but hop in. I can
Laura's,
post the link again.
Laura's nice.
Laura's wonderful. Laura's very interesting. All my conversations with Laura behind the paywall.
I know. I heard about one, and I'm not going to pay to go see it either because.
Oh, today's was a good one too. It's so often it's behind. I know I don't like paywalls and this kind of thing, but for people, that little paywall just makes them feel okay. I'm just sharing my story with this smaller group of people, and I think that's good. The open internet is too open.
Gotcha. So the paywall is like subscriber only footage or something?
So there's a little so I have 3 membership tiers. I still have to do right by the 20. There's the $25 members, which I didn't think anybody was going to subscribe to that, but people who just want to support the channel. Then there's the $8 or the $7 members. That's no wait, no ads. So people who they can't wait for the next thing, it goes there. And then there's the $3 where it's randos conversations. It's just odds and ends. The more personal stuff. So $3 a month. It's I get $2 of that $3. So it's there. She is.
Hey.
Laura.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Did you see the Tammy Peterson video
I
about
gotta
the
turn off my
rosary
other one.
testimony?
Okay.
You'll have to
Sorry,
watch.
what are we talking about? I just got here.
Tammy, well, we were talking about, that's right, I put the personal stuff there. The Tammy Peterson, there's a video out there. Tammy Peterson has a rosary testimony. It's a lovely video.
Okay, yeah, someone put it in the Catholicism channel of BOM, but I haven't watched it yet. I just finished watching your video about Jordan Peterson on Bill Maher, Paul.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was cool. That was my most favorite Jordan Peterson moment for a very long time. I thought, wow,
Yeah.
he did that well.
Yeah, every once in a while I get this feeling like he's lost it. I just see something he does that's silly or, impulsive or, just not that great. And I'm like, oh man, Peterson, what are you doing? And then this appearance on Bill Maher was like really solid. I was like, okay, good. He still got it, Yeah.
So
All right. While you're sharing stuff, I'm going to be fair to Jacob and see if I can post his foundation. Let's see if that'll do it. I don't know. Yes, no?
See it in there.
I see
In
you.
the
Ray.
comments.
Are you running the
One
show?
has
Tammy?
failed to post to Almond Tree. Are we on Almond Tree?
I'm streaming to my channel, but don't worry about it. It's all right. Failed to. You want me to post it from here? I'm the one who started the
Post it there
stream.
too. Why not?
How do I copy that?
How have you been, Laura?
Yeah.
I'm changing my audio. Can you hear me now?
No,
Yeah,
that's
you're-
probably not what I want because that says Discord channels.
I'm in okay.
Yeah, I was wondering.
So,
I'm going to check that out.
well, I started teaching last year.
Arg.
Did you know that?
No, what are you teaching?
I'm a French teacher now.
Really?
Last school year was my first year teaching high school.
Congratulations. Who are you teaching?
It's high school students.
High school French.
It's a Catholic school. Anyway,
Wow.
I only kind of just now feel like I'm getting the hang of it. And also, there's something I've noticed, which is that I'm always kind of in panic mode when I'm teaching. And it suddenly just occurred to me, like, you don't actually have to be panicking all the time. Like, you could just relax. So I'm trying to do that, like, before a class. I'm just trying to remind myself to relax, to just, like, take a moment to, like, take a deep breath and just be quiet and tell myself, no, there's nothing to worry about. It's fine. But you got to kind of stage fright, I think, if you're new to teaching. And then, it might not entirely go away unless you tell it to. So, yeah.
If you figure out how to tell it too effectively, writers could appreciate this place too. 'Cause I have so many things that I do, and then I don't do anything with doing it. Yeah, and you don't strike me as somebody who would get stage fright. You always seem so collected and kind of together.
Yeah, but the thing about teaching is that, so like if I'm talking to people in this little corner of the internet, it's basically a friendly thing. Whereas when you stand up in front of a bunch of students, especially high school students, they don't feel obliged to give you any positive feedback. Let's put it that way. Like if you're used to having fun conversations with adults where you get a lot of positive reinforcement or just like, just any kind of like some indication that the people are enthusiastic about talking to you, that feels good in a way that standing in front of a classroom that's just like a mixed bunch of people doesn't always feel good emotionally,
Are they students that want to be there, or are most of them just kind of there because they have to be learning another language?
Yeah, so in high school, you're expected to take at least 2 years of a foreign language generally, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of them are just there because they want to get their language requirement done.
I see.
And
That's kind of how
that's
I
okay.
was. In
They don't have
high
to love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I regret it now. I wish I would have learned more languages. Just for, not even for necessarily just the utility of it, just to, it's been a revelation to me just to think about how language actually develops. So I think in having just even more of that, even if I like learned French and never spoke it, it would just be nice to know it, just how it unfolds and everything.
Yeah, and like I don't want to diss the kids. I mean, they're a pretty good group of kids. I'm just thinking of like from my perspective of standing up in front of a room full of people. You know, it's different. It's a different environment. So that's why there's the stage fright element. Because it's definitely different from talking to friends, right? It's just it's a different experience.
Do you do like my teachers back in the day where they'd make the kids stand up in front and talk so they had to share in the trauma?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some who are good with that, or?
Yeah, most of them are fine with it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, they don't all love it, but they do it.
Tell us about the denim dinner.
Ooh, it was fun. Oh my gosh, Chad and his wife have some really funny stories. Oh wow, they told 2 stories that were so hilarious. But I gotta let Chad tell them if he wants to. Chad,
hop back in here.
Chad, I was laughing the whole next day about those stories that you and Ann told. You should come on here and tell them if you want to. I did have fun at your home. And Grim was there too. And you know what I neglected to do while I was in the same room as Grim Grizz? I didn't ask him his real name.
You did?
I did not.
Gotta go to another one, I guess.
I guess so.
Saw him for, was it 3-4 days at Chino? Never occurred to me to ask him his name.
Yeah, you know, he's just Grim Grizz. It seemed like his name. So then later I was like, oh, I could have actually asked him. I bet he has a birth name.
I think if he was Grim Grizz when he had his randos conversation with me, or if it was his other name.
Wow, Luke Thompson would have tickled him. That is interesting.
I don't know if Grizz would cave to that kind of torture, would he?
I don't know what I'd do.
Luke and Grizz together in a room would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Have they been on a stream together at least? I don't know if I've ever seen them talking to each other.
Luke and Grim? Luke, have you ever talked to Grim on a stream?
There are no savings throws. Save him from tickles.
And CW was there as well, so it was a nice gathering. And then some people who were new to the group, so that was also great. And Chad made an excellent prime rib roast. It was really, really good. Like you could cut it with a butter knife. It was that tender.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so envious. I would have loved to have been there. I mean, this is to me the great thing. This is the fun. This is the making friends, getting together. This is what we do this for. So.
Does it ever blow your mind that you started all this? Or I think you kind of started it.
I had a hand in it, and I'll accept that. I certainly had no plan for any of this, and so just to have had a part in it is deeply gratifying. So when what day were they? I think it was Sunday afternoon. Grizz had a live stream from Chad's, or they had a recording from Chad's garage with CW and Chad and Grizz and Senor Cebolla. And I watched it with my wife. I threw it up on the TV, and because she hardly watches any of this stuff, and she's just kind of watching like what's going on. And I said, to me, this is just to have even just played a small part in these kinds of friendships is the most gratifying thing of the whole thing. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm eternally grateful to you for it because, I would have never met Luke Thompson or Jacob or Cal or like Chad. I mean, understand. Or now Laura.
Yeah,
it
I
blows
still
my
feel like
mind.
this is the best thing that I'm part of.
Mhm.
And yeah, wouldn't have happened without you.
Well, and I don't exactly know how it happened either in some ways, because
It's because it's the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think sometimes I should do an event here. I should do a conference or something.
I don't know what that means, but
Well, I guess that means
not you. Sorry, the comment that Chad left, the denim.
The
I
denim dinner
know.
was Chad's shindig. Hey, so you know,
Oh,
my
okay.
husband went to that dinner, and he's never been to a TLC thing ever before. That was his first time at a TLC event after all the time I've spent on you people. So
What were his thoughts?
he didn't hate it.
That's a good thing.
It was pretty good. That was a win.
I think if I did something here, it would be good for the church to see, because for the church to kind of wrap their minds around what their pastor is doing. I mean, they trust me. So, but for them to sort of have any understanding of what's going on. I mean, they see the estuary, they see the people who visit the church. And when in January we start every week estuary Sunday mornings, that's good. Well, we'll see if anybody shows, for one thing. But that will be super interesting. I don't know.
That'd be fun.
I guess I
I
could
would
have
write that-
Freddie up at a table signing autographs or something. That Freddie would get a real kick out of that.
You could do clips, some kind of, little Freddie clip of something that he could sign on, or,
That'd be great.
that would be fabulous.
Yeah. No, this is the coolest thing, and to have a chance to have gotten to know. I mean, I know people at different levels, obviously, but no. And Jacob's idea of this sort of live chatting is kind of the next evolution of what was happening on the Discord server. But yeah.
Are we going to build a broadcasting empire, or what's going on here?
I did hear that rumor.
Well, that's what Jacob told me. So when first time Jacob came to Sacramento, says, I got to take you out to lunch. And so took me out to lunch. And he said, you know what the Trinity Broadcast Network is? I said, yes. He says, this is what we're going to build.
So I can see how it might be cool to have some kind of a broadcasting, like a Christian broadcasting entity that wasn't for apologetics.
Well,
have you met the people here?
Well, I think it's important that this isn't really broadcasting.
Mm.
I mean, anybody can jump into this crazy stream. And what you really need to do to be a part of this is to show up and be a good faith actor. That's really what you need. And you need to care. And so that's really cool. It's very church-like. Because in many ways, people are like, oh, I couldn't join a church, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, truth is, you can show up, believe anything you want, not believe anything what the church believes. But if you show up regularly, especially every week, and you participate, you'll be part of them. And that's true of the church. You might not be an elder or a deacon or, something, a muckety muck. But, I mean, and that's John Van Donk's story. John will never be an elder in that church. He's way too heretical. But
sometimes being an elder or deacon gets in the way of doing the important stuff.
Sometimes. Mm-hmm. But when John Van Donk wants to hold I'm going to have a 200-person conference in this church, and the church gets behind him. It says a lot.
Yep.
So
That's a good
reminds
intention.
me.
Mhm.
I gotta go.
Okay.
Wednesday. Bye.
Yeah, I should leave too. I should go home and do dinner. Who's running the stream? I guess it wasn't her. So we're
It
still
was me.
here.
Nope, it's me. Yeah.
These streams are adventures in solipsism because it's like, well, if Jason goes, we all go.
Yeah. Yep. Well, sorry your plumber never made it there. That's a bummer. Reminds me of that
No
Seinfeld
plumbing
episode with the
emergency. I just
cable
have
guy.
toilets that need some tuning up because there's all these little things about with universities, students think about sex, professors think about parking spaces. You want to know what your pastor is often worrying about, a pastor of a small church? Are their toilets running? I mean, because the reality is that toilets are these little mechanisms often, and when they go bad, you can get a huge water bill just because some toilet got stuck open. And so I just need a plumber to come in and sort. And I could do it, but for me to tune up a toilet would take a long time, and plumber will just come in and do it right. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, I
Yeah, you don't
see
wanna
from
do it
looking at the
wrong way.
driveway, my husband just pulled up, so I'm gonna go.
all right.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Bye.
I
Thank
can
you
end
from us for sharing you with us. Oh, there it is.
it.
Well,
All right.
Jason, this might be the end. You might have to pull the Jacob looking lonely face thing.
No, I'm gonna head out of here. This has been going for like 3 hours. This is pretty long for me. I can't do the 8-hour one, Jacob. Sometimes he'll stop. We'll get a snack. He'll come back.
Yeah, or the
But this has
Grim
been fun.
Grizzly. He'll play his branding.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. He's a lot of fun. His streams are wild though. But
I love his streams. Whenever they're on, I always catch them, and I enjoy it so much.
The last one with Jacob was I watched the one. So.
I haven't seen that. I thought Jacob was on it.
You should watch. He calls him Mr. Fetz. I think he says Fetz, but he says Mr. Fetz. And that's pretty great. I don't know. Anyway, well, thanks for helping me here.
Thank you,
Good to talk
Jason.
to you. You're welcome.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.